It's so hard. Like, how did he do it?
No, we haven't shot yet. But what I was trying to tell you was I drew up a little storyboard, and the guys laughed so hard at my storyboard. And I go, well, this actually organizes the shots. This is what they do at Hollywood. This is kind of a rudimentary version, albeit. But these kind of show the shots that I had going on. See my little stick figure.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, Nathan was laughing at it. He didn't even know. He'd never even seen one before. And he goes, well, they don't really use them like that, stick figures. And I go, you know what? I've worked in Hollywood for many years. Sometimes the director will look at a storyboard that we all got in the morning and go, I don't want to do this. Give me 5 minutes. And he'll go out into his trailer or something with another guy and come back out with something that looks like this and say, this is what we're going to do today, guys.
So last year I took like a cinematography course, like a school. That's how I learned how to do audio and video and all this stuff. And on the big like final project, we had to make like a short film and we had to do a storyboard, and all of mine looked like that, just stick figures. Cause I was like, I'm trying to get through this. Like I want enough detail that people understand what I want, you know?
You have to, because if you don't organize yourself a little bit, then there's no way you can edit it all, and you need to know what you want to get at the end.
Yeah, you gotta organize. Well, it's not just you, but it's also everybody else, because I could sit here and tell you like, hey, I want you to do this, this, and this, and you might see it completely different than I see it. So, yeah, those are awesome.
Isn't that funny? It's like 8 shots. But it's like the angles. And I go, so what my idea is, I worked in a lot of films. I did film school as well. But my idea is just to do like a couple takes of each angle. Because people say the lines differently, or that you just get different things. But I wanted them to look at the scenes. And I was thinking is us comedians would just do the lines of famous little scenes of movies that we talk about, like Goodfellas has a bunch of them,
Yeah.
Like what? I'm funny?
Yeah. Like haha funny?
Yeah. I'm funny to you?
Like a clown? Like I make you laugh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just little things, but I'd replace the Scarface or the Goodfellas guys with comedians.
Yeah.
And so Nathan he said, well, I've seen people do that, but they do a side-by-side where they do that, and then on the other side, is the actual scene from the thing, so people know what you're doing. I'm like, I know it's sort of subtle for us to be doing it, but I think if the scenes are famous enough that the people will pick up on that. Oh, they're doing a take on Scarface.
Yeah.
And the mud one is such a good one. What about mud? Because we always blow out the doors. Mud's there at the door. And I just thought about it one day, like, hey, Mud. And it says, like, it would be perfect if Zach or somebody, as we were blowing out, said, hey, Cole, what about Mud? And I looked back at Mud, and he's all like sweating, just like this with this water bottle. You want a job, Mud?
So you were at Westport, or not, Streets of St. Charles last night? How'd it go?
It was fun.
I wanted to go so bad.
There was a great audience. There was like 40-something people in the audience. They were a little tight the whole show. It was a weird lineup. There'd be like a funny guy, and then a guy really not funny, and then they never really got back-to-back funny guys. So they were so tight, and I think I was the 5th up. So they broke loose. I had a good set.
Good.
And then everybody else had pretty good sets too.
That's awesome. I wanted to go, but I produce Ronaldo's podcast that he does with Will and Aaron, the Riff Laugh Love one, and I was in here till 1 a.m. last night trying to edit because for whatever reason something just wasn't working.
Are they still doing it over there at the club?
No, they've started doing it here.
Oh, good.
They've done 3 here so far.
All right.
Only one of them's come out. I think the other one of them comes out today. The one I was working on last night comes out today. But man, it was, I don't know what happened. I don't know why it did this, but I had to eventually at like midnight, I just had to completely restart my computer, re-download everything, like just start from scratch because it would not work. Like it was so like that, like it wouldn't, I couldn't get it to like be smooth,
Right.
And So eventually I got it, and I didn't get out of here till like 1:30 in the morning.
It out though.
Yeah, because I wanted to do, Wednesday's the big night. Wednesday's the night you can do Streets of St. Charles, you can do Helium, and you can do Eat Crow, the new one.
Yep.
Well, how was that?
It was great.
I loved it when it was at Crow's Nest.
And they have a little bit of a new format.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
It's different. Do you still do the cards?
Yeah, but it's different than the cards. It's called the Gauntlet now. You go up, if you accept the Gauntlet the first minute, there'll be a choice of doing it with the accents, wax sense, or doing it counterpunch, where you say it and the people heckle. And I forget what the third one was. There's 3 choices, and they decide. Oh no, the moods. They change the moods where they yell out the different moods. So it's just those 3 things, and I think they were trying to format it to get the show to run a little faster, quicker. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So he went over the format with me when I got there and stuff, and it's a different little bar. Yeah, but it's fine. The one drawback is they don't do the late food service. They cut off food like at 10 or a little before 10, so I know.
That was the best part of Crow's Nest.
I know. Well, that and Sydney is the next best part of the gal that works the bar at Crow's Nest is so gorgeous and so cool.
I don't think I ever really got to know her.
She's short and really cool and really friendly, and she's just awesome. I mean, I've walked in there at midnight and they still fix me food.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love places like that. And you have to know about it too, because it's not going to be advertised anywhere. Like, you have to know them, in order for them to do that stuff.
You know how I ended up at the Crow's Nest? My first time I went over there was I was standing outside of the Funny Bone, and Nathan told me, everybody goes over to the Crow's Nest. You going to go over there? And I'm like, well, where is it? And he goes, follow me. And next thing you know, I followed him over there. That's probably when we started hanging out and, talking about comedy. Yeah. After the show. So regularly.
That's how I found out about it. Was Ronaldo was like, yeah. He's like, what are you doing after this? And I was like, I guess I'm driving home. And he goes, come to Crow's Nest. Come to Crow's Nest. Nathan. I was like, okay. And I went. It was fun. It makes you better for sure. Like, that's that's one of those things where you can't be prepared for that.
No, it'll surprise you too. The stuff that, like you say, makes you better. If you're willing to go along with their thing, it does. There's some surprise elements that come with you that makes you think, oh, I could do that joke a different way. You're right. I could tell it with that energy. Is that what you're saying? Like,
yeah. And it prepares you for if somebody, if you get heckled, if you get that one card, or the last time I was there, they did the cards and you drew. Right. I forgot what card it was, but it opens you up to everyone can yell out at you. Right. And Ella Fritz, do you know her? Oh yeah. Yeah. She would stay in the back of the bar. She didn't do anything, but as soon as she heard someone pulled the heckle card, she'd run up to the front and then just scream like.
She still does that.
The most profane things at people, and watch. I'm just like.
What's interesting is that comics' idea of hecklers is always shut up or you suck or listen. But most of the time, if you're actually working comedy clubs, and the hecklers that I deal with more are people that are just laughing too much or repeating the line back, or it's never you suck or get off the stage heckles. I mean, I have had those.
Yeah, I think we all have had those
years ago. But you suck, and but nowadays they're more just like people that are disruptive. Yeah. More than heckling per se, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's what I would like when they do that exercise. I'd like to figure out a way to heckle people the way they really will get heckled when they get at comedy clubs.
I like it when they just agree really loud, where you get like the hell yeah, brother, or something like that. I'm glad you're on board, but man, you just threw me. Oh yeah, you just tripped me up.
Now, it's so funny.
When I was at I did a weekend at St. Charles 2 weekends ago, I guess. Yeah. And I have a joke. I won't do the bit, but the premise is like my daughter was watching a show and it had like two teenagers like having sex on the show, and I described that in the setup, and someone in the audience goes, "Hell yeah!" Like that, and I was like, "Whoa, man!" Like that threw me for. I've never had anybody cheer for teenage sex.
That's a lot
of
energy for teenage sex.
Yeah, and in the setup, I clearly explained that they were like 13 or 14 years old, and he was like, "Hell, you know, it would be a little different if it was 18 or 19."
Maybe he didn't hear that part.
I don't know, but
benefit of the doubt, right?
We all stopped, and I just like I stood there for a second, and I was like, "How do I move on?" And I just said something like, "I don't know if there's any cops in the audience, but," and I just kind of motioned to him, and then everybody laughed, and we just kept going. But that was.
Who did you work there? Who worked?
Matt Eisman was supposed to be there.
It was PJ.
PJ Walsh, yep.
Yeah, he's a buddy of mine.
Yeah, he's a great guy. We hung out every night after the show.
Did he still do the break dance thing where he spins around on the floor doing the break dance at the end of the set? That was one of his closers.
I didn't see him do that. He did one about, he's real animated.
Did you know he was a dentist for Clinton?
Yeah, he talked about that. He did that. Yeah, he did that bit. He talked about.
Yeah, I've worked with PJ a bunch of times.
Oh, he's great, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a really cool guy. And Matt, I was sorry he couldn't make it because he's just as nice a guy.
Yeah.
And I've worked with them both. They used to both come by my open mic, but PJ and I have done a club up in Reno, Tahoe together. I featured for him.
It's too bad you weren't in town. We all could have hung out because after every show.
I saw that.
After every show, we hung out in the. We went back to the comedy condo, and we would just talk comedy and talk. Bounce bits back and forth for 2 hours, 3 hours. That's my favorite part.
The hang.
Yeah, the hang, exactly. Which I wanted to make I want to make a podcast with Ronaldo about that. Like after a show, we come back here, hang out, like. Talk and either call it the hang or the post-show podcast or something like that, because that's the best part to me of any open mic you go to is hanging out afterwards.
And beyond open mics, it's the best part of the clubs too, because that's when you're finding out about the work.
Yeah,
that's how you're getting paid and finding out about comedians that are looking for features and stuff. It's just invaluable. Like when I was in LA, I hung out after my show at the Dime Bar with a buddy of mine who's been touring with Jay Moore.
Oh wow!
You know Jay Moore?
Yeah.
And I guess he's just brilliantly funny. Super funny guy, and really talented. Of course, he's been around forever. But there were some other issues, so he's not touring with them anymore. And he's working with a guy named Adam. My buddy's working with a guy named Adam Hunter.
Adam Hunter. I don't think
he's a headliner. I think he's been out here maybe once or twice. He won was a finalist on the America's Got Talent thing. I think it is.
Yeah, I know I've worked with a couple people from that show, but
we just stayed to talk to him about what happened with Jay Moore and stuff because it was so interesting.
Oh yeah, the comedy gossip. That's the best part of when you're in the.
Oh yeah, because Jay Moore was dating Jenny Buss.
Okay.
Jeannie Buss. I'm sorry, Jeannie Buss. And Jeannie Buss is the daughter of Dr. Buss, who owned the Los Angeles Lakers. And now they own the Ice House Comedy Club, where I used to work.
Oh, I've heard the Ice House was the best.
It's awesome. It's like one of the oldest clubs in the country.
I've heard...
it's got 2 rooms.
I've heard a couple people talk about it. I don't remember who. I know I've heard... like Rogan talk about it, and he said that it used to be his, especially after he got banned from the store, he said that the Ice House was like the best.
Oh yeah.
Because you could go in there, and if you were crushing, like it was like the way it's set up, it was like you were just destroying.
It is a nice setup. It's similar to Westport in the shape of the room, really. Kind of you're here, and then the room's wide out in front of you, and so deep, but second level, like Helium has that more. The main Helium, where they have the main audience, but then they have a little second layer that fills out, and then that's like 200 something people. That's like Westport has that a little bit too. All the back area,
off the side,
and where we sit, the bullpen.
Yeah, I love comedy clubs like that. You got to have a low ceiling. The low ceiling, I think, just makes it so much better.
When you open the doors of Westport, I mean, it's got terrible stage lighting, but when you open the doors of Westport Showroom and you look into that comedy club, it looks and smells like a comedy club.
Yeah.
I mean, I love St. Charles, but it's like Ronaldo says in his, it's a converted, Ramada Inn or something, conference room or something like that. I forget what he calls it, something like that. That's my home. That's where probably I'm more comfortable than anywhere else. So I've been on that stage more.
I have more confidence at Westport or at St. Charles. I don't know why I keep doing that.
How about Helium?
I don't really ever get on there. I can't, for whatever reason, every time I've signed up for the open mic, I haven't gotten on. And then the only time I've ever gotten to work there is for the St. Louis Funniest competition. So once a year, I will get a set at Helium. And for whatever reason, I can't make the open mic. Every time I go,
that main room
it's awesome. I love it. I'd love to be there more. But
I did a guest spot with the guy from New York, Steve Reza.
Renazizi?
Renazizi.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was packed on Saturday night, and Scotty James was the host, and he was crushing, and then he brought me out. It was so much fun.
Scott James is a killer. He and Jason Jenkins were on my round at the funniest person at Helium this year.
Right.
And Jason went out and just absolutely destroyed. And we were all like,
well, he's
moving on. And then Scott went out.
Destroyed.
I think he was right before me or right after me. And we were just like, oh, okay.
Right, that's two.
Yep, that's two.
So we're all vying for the one
Yeah,
spot.
We're all shooting for third now. But yeah, he just is comfortable. Like he just sits in the pocket, and he's got that 10-year.
That's what happens when you're working at a club,
Yeah.
On the weekends. Watch Ronaldo. His stage presence is so strong. And I'm almost certain it comes from being able to work in front of paying audiences on the weekend, because when you do that, it really forces you to take your game up a notch, because obviously you want it to go well. You want to get asked back to do another weekend. So it puts your whole mind into a different thing, and you come away from those weekends a little stronger when you're back at the open mics. I think if you do work at clubs and then you come back to work your material at the open mics, you come back with a little more, pep in your step.
And it's the reps. I mean, Ronaldo just gets night after night after night after night. He just bar shows and and that's the thing. A lot of people, because down south, I'm from Cape. So like 2.5 hours down south, right? And there's maybe 7 comedians down there that there's a weekly open mic they all go to.
What's the name of the club down there? It's
closed now. It was Laughing Gas.
Oh,
but
they
do an open mic at a daiquiri bar. It's like a place.
What happened to Laughing Gas?
It just closed.
Went out of business.
Yeah. There's
it's the fate, right, of comedy.
Oh man, it was the fate of this one. I can tell you that. I worked there.
Really?
So
I saw they were doing shows down there. It looked like fun shows too. They were getting headliners.
I was there from when they opened. I helped put the tables together. I carried in the chairs. I helped put that club together.
Yes.
And I loved it. I loved it. The people that worked there were awesome. And then the pandemic hit and we shut down, and we were down from March of 2020 to August of 21. And maybe August or September, I don't remember. But then when we came back from the pandemic, it was a completely different thing. And I worked there for about 2 weeks, and I was going to school, and I just told the owner, I'm like, look, man, I don't really need this job. I'm just here to help you out.
Right.
And I'm not going to let you treat me like shit.
Oh.
And he was like, well, then you can go. I was like, okay. And then a year later,
yeah.
He, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in there, and a lot of my friends ended up getting burned. Oh. And I got a lot of negative feeling towards that, but whatever.
Cape Girardeau's kind of a cool place too down there. I mean,
it is, and they were
nice
good
to have a club down there, right?
Yeah, not have to drive 2 hours one way for 4 minutes on stage. Yeah. You know, that's why I have this place. And
that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do shows. Like I start out I got inherited my open mic at the American Legion. I was just going there because I lived near there. And then Corey asked me if I wanted to take it over because she had other stuff going. She had a bi-monthly, I think, two shows a month at another spot and something else. And so I said, fine, that's fine. I live out there. I'll just have my friends come out and host, or, you know.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. It's easy. It's right by my house. And we just started finally getting audience in there. Mm-hmm. This biker group came. They've come the last couple of weeks. It's grown. There was like probably 40 people there drinking and having fun last Sunday night. But they met last night with the board to cancel my show because they changed the managers. Corey's mom was the manager of the American Legion. That's one of the reasons why she had the show there. And she left. So the new lady wasn't liking the comedy show. And so they were going to vote on it last night. So I already got another open mic out there to substitute on Thursday nights. And it's the good thing about it, it's at a bar right around the corner from the American Legion that's always packed with people. And I was always over there trying to get all those people to come down to the American Legion Hall. Well, now I'm just taking the comedy show to them. So we'll have an open mic there on Thursday starting November 10th at 8 o'clock. And so at Mandy's bar.
November 10th at 8. Okay.
Yeah, Mandy's bar. Ronaldo asked me last night, he goes, do we really need another open mic in O'Fallon, Illinois? And I'm like, well, I live out there and I'm losing my one mic, I'm pretty sure. So that's one of the reasons why I did it. But I am trying to do other shows. I figure if I can do an open mic, maybe I'll try a book show. So I'm doing a book show. My first one is at the Heavy Anchor next Wednesday with the Wrecking Crew.
The Heavy Anchor.
Got my lineup. You've seen my.
Yeah, I saw. I like the picture with you holding up all the like grandkid pictures in your wallet. That's awesome.
Zach made that up. I think it's a takeoff from Steve Martin's.
The Cheaper by the Dozen. Yeah. Now I see it. Now I didn't. I didn't connect the dots before. I thought it was just a funny picture.
I didn't either. And then he told me, I'm like, that doesn't look like my body. I mean, it's not terribly different than my body. It's kind of similar, but I don't think that's me. I don't have that sweater, for one thing. I never wear those type of pants as well. But anyway, so we're doing that, and that's Wednesday, November 2nd, and Ronaldo's our host, and Scotty James, who we've mentioned, is my headliner. And I had a secret guest that was going to come out after the show, but the secret guest got booked out of town making money. So he's not going to be able to make it.
Yeah.
But I still have a bunch of funny guys on there. And
yeah, I saw Scott James. Is Will O'Donnell on there?
He's on the second one. The second show, I'm going to be doing that one. It's December 7th at Prism Bar. Sorry to be on here promoting my show.
No, that's what this is for.
And my buddy Yoshi's coming into town. He's going to headline that December 7th. It's actually the anniversary of Pearl Harbor Day. And so I made up a flyer that was Tora, and with Yoshi headlining. And my co-headliner, Ellie, shot it down, the idea. She said, I looked it up, but that's a depressing movie. And I'm like, well, not really. It's not really depressing. It's just, if you've ever seen the old movie Tora, it just sort of shows how America was caught off guard or asleep at the wheel when they attacked.
Yeah.
So Tora is really surprise. I think surprise.
I thought it was.
Isn't it?
I thought it was tiger, but it, surprise, surprise, surprise makes more sense, I guess.
Well,
I have no idea.
Maybe Torah is tiger.
I have no idea.
Yoshi said we should do an all-Jewish show and make it Torah.
That's a good one.
Well, I also want to do an all-black comedian show. And use the same flyer, but the pictures, you won't be able to see any of their pictures. It'll just be, the wallet with all the... That's horrible, I know. We wouldn't do that.
No.
But I do want to do an all-black show. I'm thinking about it. I want to try different stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I want to get into different rooms. Like, I want to do... Like, I don't know, I hate it when people say this, but urban rooms, that's what I want, because people look at me and they're like,
to start showing up.
I'm a middle-aged white guy or whatever, and they're like, oh, he's got this lane, and it's like, no, I want to do all of it. I want to test my jokes in front of everybody.
Oh yeah, you know what, and it's a wonderful experience. Believe me, I was going out to supper club on the regular, right, and I noticed when I come into the room, the people would all look and notice me come into the bar area, you know what I mean, and they were looking forward to seeing me.
Yeah.
So.
I love, have you ever done Wing It Wednesday?
Yeah, of course.
Or Too Much Sauce?
Yeah.
They, when you show up.
With Black Charles and Tenario. Yeah.
Tenario and Jason Jenkins is there a lot. They do a lot of, I love just walking up because there's always people outside hanging out, and you just get roasted as soon as you walk up, but like in a friendly way, not like, oh,
I can never leave the place.
I know. It takes like
go over to Crow's Nest.
Yeah, it takes 35 minutes to get out of there because everybody's talking to you, and Did you? They
had a roast where they roasted Tenario and. I went to it. When I pulled up, they were all out in the parking lot. They'd moved the show outside into the parking lot. And I thought, first thing that crossed my mind was, oh, goddamn, did COVID come back? And they're all out there. And it was fun as shit, man. Mm-hmm. And there were some guys up there who were roasting Tenario that I saw a really funny side of a couple of guys that they're new to comedy, they're new to stand-up, but oh my God, if they keep it up, they're just so naturally funny. And one guy is Tone. Tone, the comedian, is kind of a big guy.
Oh, yeah, I know him.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It was so funny roasting Tenario. So he's one of those guys, he's still new to comedy, but if he keeps at it, he's going to be super funny. And every skit I've watched him do, he's really funny in the skits, too.
That's what I liked about it, because even though it's an open mic, the first minute and a half of your 4 minutes is just roasting whoever came before you or somebody in the room. Like, that's what every single person did,
Oh,
and it's my favorite. I love watching it.
I notice when I go to those rooms that I start out with a little more pandering. But the second time I go, it's less pandering, a little more material. The third time, I'm having fun and, trying new stuff and just talking to them and comfortable. And that's kind of with any room. Last night when we did the new Eat Crow, it was a very young crowd, a bunch of blues fans in there, and I was obviously the only old guy in there. There wasn't anybody 40s or 50s. It was a bunch of young people, and I was like, God damn it, this is always the way it starts out. And then after a while, I start to feel more at place, you know what I mean? I think that's any room.
Yeah. Well, the way I think about it, especially doing like Too Much Sauce and stuff like that, is just my jokes are about my wife and my kids. Like, that's relatable. Everybody's got kids. Everybody, has a significant other, like whatever. And then my the thing that's been my closer for a while is about church. And that's like that demographic, It's like old white people and then black people. And then that's the thing that bonds them is going to church. So it's like, I don't know. I've been trying to get in there more. I've been trying to...
This is the only reason I advanced at the helium contest from the first round, because I didn't bring one person to come see me. But when I stepped out on stage, I looked at the audience. I'm like, oh, shit, I know you folks. I know you guys from out the north side.
Yeah.
And they loved that when I said that. I had the best set that first show, and I was the last comedian up.
You were of the last show, the last comedian up. You were literally like
I think they were hoping I'd die before they got to me.
So if you don't know about it, the helium competition, there's 12 different nights?
Yeah, or 10 rounds of 10, I think.
Yeah, 10 rounds of at least 10 comedians each round. And it starts in like early June and will go until
August.
Yeah, middle of August. Just the first round because it's spread out with weekends in between and stuff. And Cole was the very last person on the very last show. And it is miserable to wait because
I felt so bad that I advanced because I had buddies there that brought like 20 or 30 family members. And then old Cole, white 64-year-old guy, got nobody there, comes in. You know what? I really didn't. I just entered the contest because I'm like you. I wanted to perform at the Helium.
Yeah.
I didn't have any aspirations of being the funniest comedian. And I felt that I was not even really should have been in the... I'm from Los Angeles. I wanted a person to win to be St. Louis. So when Will won, I was so happy because there's no comedian in the St. Louis scene that really is more representative of St. Louis than Will. He's a Cards fan. He grew up here. He's
a Midwest guy.
His jokes. Everything is Midwest about him. He is perfect, and plus he's just such a good guy. Shit.
Well, I'm like you. I don't think every year I sign up and I'm like, well, there goes $25 or whatever the fee is. I'm going to keep signing up just because it's fun and you want to be like, it's the same reason we hang out after a show, it's because you want to be in the know, like what's going on, what's the gossip, what's the drama, who had a good set but didn't move on. There's always that every year.
I probably watched 6 of the other rounds almost completely because I had buddies in them.
Yeah.
So I would race over there after Funny Bone or wherever and get there in time to watch almost the whole show sometimes. So.
Yeah, I love doing it. And you're not going to win. Like every year you kind of know, like, all right, it's this person's year beforehand just because it's like you think it's, it's their turn. Not that they don't deserve it. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But someone who's put in all the time and they've gotten better and better and better and they go into it and you're like, who the contenders are every year before it starts. And so I like just being a part of that. Like I like just watching and like, oh, did you see that? And he had a great...
Funny Bone was talking about doing one.
I hope so. They used to.
Jeff was going to maybe help organize it. Jeff from Steve's Hot Dogs.
Oh, Jeff Stevenson? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's awesome. Are you going to hot dogs tonight? Steve's Hot Dogs tonight?
I'm going to do Platypus and then Steve's Hot Dogs, and then I'm going to walk across the street from Platypus because that's where Prism Bar, the gay bar where we're doing our show, is. Tor. I don't know if I'm going to call it Tor. That's pretty funny though, right?
That is funny. I would go.
You know what Yoshi's background is? He's a porn director and edited porn for years. So that's how he ended up getting to know a bunch of top celebrities and headliners and working with them. In the olden days, he would take them porn. And so he told me a story about Doug Stanhope's mom was doing some kind of documentary about the adult film industry. And she would call him up and he said, her voice, it sounded just like Doug's, like she smoked cigarettes all day. Yoshi, this is Miss Stanhope. Can I get some more of that woman on woman? Oh, yes, Miss Stanhope, I'll get that right out to you today. So he's going to come into town and he said he's going to go talk to his buddy who does a lot of gay porn and see if he can get a bunch of videos and CDs and stuff to give out to the customers at the Prison Bar. Some of my friends are a little bit questionable about, why are you doing a show at a gay bar? But when I saw the space behind the gay bar, it was so beautiful. Mm-hmm. Zach Bukovich took me back to, he goes, you want to see something? And I'm like, sure. So we just walked across the street and he goes, follow me. And I went, oh, this is a gay bar. We walked in there. And the room in the back is just beautiful. They do a cabaret show there every night. So there's a stage, nice seating area, DJ booth, light system, sound system. So we're going to do a show there December 7th. It's a Wednesday. And we'll do it early, like 7 to 9, so we can get out of the way for the girls to come in and do their cabaret afterwards.
Oh, yeah? That's awesome.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's like I'm trying to get Nathan to go over there with me and check out the room. Well, I don't want to go walking into a gay bar just with you. I'm like, this is going to be a problem, baby.
Yeah. No.
I think it'll be fun.
It'll be fun because there's regulars at all these, so.
The owner is so friendly and so cool. And I don't want to compare him with another bar's owner, but I mean, he's so much easier than the other guy. I'm like, you know what? I hope this works because this would be a great monthly space. I just come in there once a month. Around the first of the month, I do my show in the back there. And I try to bring in like somebody, not a major headliner, but somebody who's willing to travel, you know what I mean? That might come in and do the show and I can pay them.
I know that there's lots of people out there with enough time to do it, and that's the thing. If you look, there's comedians everywhere.
No, I got a bunch of friends in LA too. New York.
Who do you think the best? What's the best bit you've heard recently from somebody?
Well, there's a bunch of guys that have strong bits going on right now. I mean, I watch all the young kids. It's hard for me to just pick out one name. I might leave another one out. But I see him hustling, like Alex Hayes.
Yeah.
He really works hard. He's hustling. He's working the door, the Funny Bone, to get spots. Him and Jack Wright both.
Yeah.
And I watch Alex sets getting stronger and stronger. And he got the tag from another comedian. I think Aaron Porter gave him the line about his conservative dental hygienist. His teeth never been so white,
Yeah.
And the line I like so much is that Aaron did give it to him, but it's still a great line. Doesn't matter. He's worried about a lot of plaque on plaque crime.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you probably heard that, right?
Yeah. That was good.
That's one, but there's many. I don't know. I watch them all.
Yeah.
But as far as just like a new bit, I mean, it's hard to not mention Greg Warren.
Oh, yeah.
Greg Warren.
His new special, they just filmed it, I think 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's the 1st of October at Lexington.
Yeah, so about a month ago now. But
and you know who directed it?
Nate Bargatze. Yeah. So that's going to be good. He's
great.
I'm not giving it away, but the peanut butter bit.
Yeah, of course.
You always like,
and the orange juice and Pringles if he does those too.
Yeah,
those are hilarious as well. I've been watching him work that. I watched him do a set. It was for one of the fundraisers at the Westport, and I'm pretty sure he was tuning up because it was right before the special. And man, he smoked it.
Yeah.
He just smoked the set.
When he gets on a roll, he just crushes. Like, I mean, when you go to an open mic and he's sitting there trying to polish out a bit,
right,
it's like everybody just kind of sits back like, "Ooh, all right, Greg's clocked in. Here we go."
Well, it's so fun to watch him. And also, one of the highlights for me about why I liked St. Louis in the beginning, he's like one of the first people that ever talked to me when I came here, because I'm older, and he's a little bit older. He's younger than me. But he had been in L.A., and he was out there in the 90s doing comedy. I didn't start till 2000, so I didn't know him back then. But we talked a little bit, and I just enjoyed his comedy so much. And that I'd see him talking to the younger comics, and stuff, that they had access to this guy. To me, that was a real big selling point for St. Louis. It was not just the supportive nature of the young comedians that I could see happening, but also you have access to somebody like Greg. I mean, he's just one guy, but he's willing to go to the open mics, and we watch him do his 10 minutes while we're doing our 4 minutes. But that's like, if he talks to you for say 5 minutes or 3 minutes or something in the bar area, it's really worth what you would pay a comedy class for a month. And I've been lucky enough to stand next to him when he was giving somebody else advice, and I could see in their eyes that they were really taken in. They were trying, to take in what he was telling them, but they were a little like, Greg Warren's talking to me, But I took note. I started doing exactly what he told the kid to do. And all of a sudden I was cranking out tags and new stuff, and it was just a simple little drill.
He there's been times where I've seen him talking to someone, and you kind of just like slowly like slide over. Like if that's them, you kind of like, what is he saying? Okay, like. But
there's no excuse for any cute girl to not be funny in St. Louis if Greg has anything to do with it, because I know he likes, well, of course the guys like women and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But I've been lucky enough to be standing next to Ellie when he came up to give Ellie advice, and I was the recipient.
Is it Ellie
Kirchhofer?
Kirchhofer, that's right. Yeah,
she's actually helping me co-produce my show Wednesday at the Anchor. She's Heavy Anchor. Mm-hmm. She's great.
Yeah, you said her name. You said Ellie before, and I was
Kirchhofer,
Kirchhofer. I was just making sure that was who.
What's funny is I used to hang out with this guy named Luis when I first got here, and I didn't know anybody else, and we'd meet at the mics and talk a little bit. And I told him, I said, we saw her, and I said, we should get her to be friends with us so we won't look like homos sitting over here. And sure enough, we became friends with her, and we still looked like homos. It didn't really change anything. But I got to know her starting back then, mm-hmm. and we became friends. And she was always real kind to me. And then I came to learn that she had a father who was suffering from dementia, and he was, kind of a cute little guy. He had glasses and stuff. And this probably had something to do with why she was friendly to me. I probably reminded her. And she just lost her dad. He just passed away.
That's too bad.
I know.
I've only recently met her because she works at St. Charles. Yeah. She's a server out there, and I think I met her at an open mic, and then
she's funny.
She's very funny
and clever.
Mm-hmm.
And she's really cute. Let's face it.
That really sucks about her dad, though.
I know. This is a horrible story, but I just tell you, I went to the funeral, mm-hmm. And she sent me the information, but it was the right name funeral home, but I guess they got a bunch of
other locations.
Cudis or whatever it was. Yeah. So I went to the wrong one the first time, and they told me, no, you got to go 15 minutes down or 15 miles down the road. So I went to the right one, mm-hmm. and when I walked in, there was a group of people. They were all outside of the room where he was resting, and a guy just came up to me, and I said, Mr. Kirchhofer? And he said, yeah, right this way. And they took me into the viewing room, and I was, next thing you know, I'm in there looking at him in his casket, and it's the first time I'd met him. Mm-hmm. So I said, nice to meet you. Sorry, this is where it has to be. Yeah. But your daughter's awesome. Whatever you did to raise her, she's just great. And I love her to death. That's why I came here to see you, So I walked out, and then I found Ellie. She was out there, consoling the family. She had thought she was the last one in the room to view him. Mm. And that was really important to her. And then she found out later that Cole had slipped in. I felt so awful. I told her I only did 5 minutes.
That's great. It's terrible, but it's great. Like, poor Ellie. Oh man, I hope she doesn't see this.
No, she knows. She told the whole story up at Heavy Anchor.
Oh, okay, good.
She's like, give it up to Cole. He said, well, the one person that showed up at my dad's funeral for me, and he's so touching. Not only did he show up, but he actually was the last person to see him. And she asked me, it was so funny, she didn't know that day when I went there, but she asked me, I go, I saw your dad, I just said goodbye to your dad. She goes, he looks good, didn't he? And I go, yeah, relatively speaking, of course. But anyway, she's a great kid, and she's going to be a riser. Yeah. Because she's funny, and she doesn't resort to the just getting up and talking about my vagina or, this or that. She's not crude for the sake of getting laughs. she doesn't do weird stuff just for the laugh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, she's got some, I don't know what that is. Moral compass.
That's the thing. A lot of people they're just dirty just for the sake of being dirty.
Right.
I guess it's like their whole life they've been told you can't say this, you can't do that, and then they finally get to a place and they're like, no, I can do it, and they go up and they do it just because it's like taboo or whatever. Right. But they don't realize that that's what all of the new comedians are doing. So it's just nobody wants to know about your politics, and nobody wants to know about your porn preferences, and nobody wants to, like, there's like, you think they're interesting things, you think they're funny stories, but they're not. They're going to shut off the crowd.
I listened to the audience last night. Ronaldo's got a new bit it's a great bit about how the trans kid in his high school stole this girl, you know, and it's one thing to get in a fight with a trans. The only thing worse than getting in a fight with a trans person is getting beat up by a trans person, right? But then he has some more stuff to it. He added some more stuff to it. And you could see the audience. In fact, he even commented on stage, okay, I lost you at this point.
Yeah.
Because they get to a point where Yoshi said something about when we were working on the road. He said, you know what, audiences today, they're so sick and tired of paying so much for everything. They just want to come out and get a laugh and get their mind off of all the shit they have going on home, the credit debt and all this stuff. And that's why, because he does a lot of just stupid stuff that I've heard him tell just jokes for like 20 years, you know, about Hiroshima or whatever, you know, thank you very much, you know, all my family dead. But they love that stuff.
Yeah.
So
that's what when I started out, and if you're a political person, like a political comedian, or, you know, if you have a really funny joke about porn, then go for it. But for the majority of people, just don't do it. Because when I got into it, my thought was, if you're doing this, you're doing it to be an entertainer. You're doing it to entertain people. So how do you entertain someone? Well, you distract them from the real world for a little bit. Let them just think about stuff that doesn't matter, you know, because there's all kinds of, like, are we going to be in war with Russia and the economy and COVID and all this stuff that people are just like, they're bombarded with it all day long. And you're just like, give them a break. I'm going to tell you this funny story about what my kid did the other day. Blah, 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 blah. Like, let you just be distracted. Just be distracted for a little while. Take your mind off stuff, because I hate it.
You know what's interesting is that Midwest audiences, comedy audiences, are awesome. I'll tell you, for one thing, they brave the weather to come out to comedy shows. It was raining. You couldn't even see the road the other night, and there was still 40 people at an open mic at, where was I driving? The weather was so bad the one night, but people still came out. I think that might have been Tuesday. There was to clip people in the Westport open mic. I didn't get on the list, but there's people there.
Yeah.
And they laugh at stuff like I did my jokes about moving to St. Louis and the differences and stuff that I notice out here between the other place. And my jokes that I talk about St. Louis worked in LA, and they worked in Phoenix. So I feel that out here, your audience is kind of broad. They're mostly, let's face it, they're white people mostly, and the Funny Bone, St. Charles are usually mostly white people. Some young people, mid-age, even some older people. So it's kind of broad. As Westport, I describe it, well, these are the weekends at least, and St. Charles too. The weekend audiences, they have money. They come in. You know, it's guys that are older, rich, and tanned with beautiful young wives and stuff. Because I sit at the bar and watch them file into the club. And it's a lot of the same people come weekend after weekend to the shows. You know, I'll see a lot of the same people there, you know. So I think it's a great comedy scene here.
I do too. The more I travel, the more I really start to appreciate it. Because I've done shows. This summer, I did shows in Cincinnati. I did shows in Nashville. I did some shows just kind of all over the place in a bunch of different cities. And the more I went to different places, the more I was happy that St. Louis is available to me, because we have 3 comedy clubs. We did have 4, before Backdoor closed down.
Right.
R.I.P.
And one club has 2 rooms. So it's like.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got the garage and main room.
Yeah, exactly. And then St. Charles, Westport, Helium. Actually, they still do an open mic at the old Backdoor club.
Friday night.
Friday nights.
In fact, they're looking for comedians this Friday.
That's 4 in a 25-mile radius or something.
We have room for another chain club to come in, like a House of Comedy or a Laughs or a Looney Bin. One of those could come into town. Maybe it'd be nice to have one on this side of the city.
Yeah, that's true. That would be cool.
Did they ever have a club over on this side of the city or no?
I don't know. Not while I've been doing it. I don't know if they used to. Down at the landing,
right,
where they have all those bars and stuff, that would be a good place for one, I think. But I don't know. Maybe I don't know the city super well. I know how to get from.
What was the club that was out in O'Fallon or Fairview Heights? Not Hey Guys. I went to that one, but supposedly there was a Funny Bone out there at one point.
I don't know. It was not since I've been around. Yeah, it was before my time. So.
Did you ever do Hey Guys?
Never did Hey Guys.
I did that one.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was all right. It was kind of, they would get like the mid-level headliners come in and stuff. And some guys that would headline at Funny Bone would go there, actually, in all honesty. I just did the open mic night. I never got to work the weekends there, but it closed down.
Yeah.
But it's close to me. That's why.
Yeah, I wish there was another one. I loved Backdoor. Right. Because it was it wasn't a big room. Max capacity may have hold 65 people or something like that, but it was real small. Right. And when it was packed, it felt like this. It felt like everybody was close. And the stage was Did you ever do Backdoor?
Yeah, many times.
Yeah, just the triangle in the corner. And I did a weekend with Aaron Weber once, and he was like, "Have you ever performed in the round?" And I was like, "No, man." I was like, "Do you see that? I've only performed on the triangle. That's the only shape I've done."
Slice,
the pizza slice, the equilateral. That's what I perform at. But I loved that. I loved that room.
Yeah, they're doing it Friday. I'm doing the Rec Room on Friday.
Where's the Rec Room?
It's in Overland, and it's my first time there, but it's supposed to be fun. Ronaldo said it's a very fun room, and I'm doing it with a couple other guys. I think Larry Green was just added to the show, and another guy, Trey Ellers. Long-hair guy. I think he's from another town. He's from maybe Springfield or somewhere.
Yeah, I know him.
I've crossed paths with him at Crow's Nest a few months ago.
I think he does a bit with a balloon. I'm not for sure. Is that him?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. I worked with him in Mason City.
Yep.
Have you done Mason City?
Not yet.
That's fun, too.
I'm looking forward to all this. I want to do Bonkers. I want to do Little Rock. I'm going to stay out here.
The Looney Bin in Little Rock? Yeah, I want to do that, too. I've never been to Arkansas for comedy.
One of my buddies, Ty Rivera, who I work with quite a bit, he opens, he doesn't open, he headlines Tulsa and Little Rock. And I'm going to try to get him to come to St. Louis, too. He's a gay Mexican comedian. He's a little edgy, a little conservative. Very funny, though. And I started out with him in LA. He's in Vegas now.
Those are two very distinct things. He's a little edgy, a little conservative. Seems like.
Yeah, no, he was supporting Trump and really taking a lot of heat from it. But he's also claims he's the funniest LGBT comedian and he turns his head on the planet or something. Yeah. Ty Rivera is his name.
That's cool. I would like to. I've never heard of him. I'll look him up later.
He's a lightning bolt.
Yeah.
But you know what? Also, I want to mention Reggie is in town.
Yeah, this weekend at Westport.
6 shows.
I'm probably going to go. I was either going to go, if I didn't go to Steve's tonight, I was going to go to Westport and watch.
I just hung out with him last night. He's really cool.
Probably going to go tomorrow for sure.
I'm going tomorrow's second show.
Okay, I'll probably go for both. I'll just hang out because I have nothing to do. But he's on there with Jason Jenkins.
Did you start out? Yeah, and Steve.
No, Reggie is in like the class above me. He might even be 2 classes above me. I'm not sure how long he's been doing it, but he was already,
doing it when you started.
Yeah, but he's so cool. Like he always hangs out. He talks to you. Like,
yeah, we hung last night.
Even if you bomb, he'll come up to you. And here's a trick: if you bomb and he comes up to you and says, "Hey, how's your set go?" If you tell him, "Oh yeah, good," he will roast you alive. But if you're like, "I bombed," then he will give you advice and like be cool with you. Right. But it's always a test to see like, are you an idiot? Like, are you a narcissist?
Right.
No, Reggie's one of my favorite people in St. Louis. He was really cool to me when I first started, and like he didn't have to talk to me. He could have been like, get away from me or whatever. Right. But he was cool. Greg Warren was cool. I don't think he knows who I am. I don't think if you pointed at me and you're like, "Greg, who's that?" He'd be like, "I don't know his name," but he's seen me enough times that it's one of those things where he's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And he
listens to everybody's jokes.
He does. Especially if you're in the room like right before him or right after him, he'll stick around and listen.
He's giving me little twists and changes because I can tell I've listened to that joke the last 2 nights, Cole, and I think you're leaving out one little word. Yeah, and I think that would make it get a little more laughs if you did it. And so I of course.
I bombed probably the hardest I've ever bombed in my entire life in front of Greg Warren. And after the show, or not after the show, but like after his set, he came up to me and he just goes, "Good set." And I was just like, I put my head down and he goes, No. Keep working. And he's like, "There's something there." And he just walked off. And that was the only thing. And I was just like...
We love Greg so much.
I was like, oh. That was...
so funny. Me and all the kids, right? I hang out with all these Andre, Nathan Gaffigan, and Jack, all the young guys, I'm lucky they welcome me into the group. I feel bad for the other old guys sometimes because I think they look over at me and like, "Hey, what the fuck, how come Cole gets to hang out with the young hip kids and we're all over here with our masks on looking like idiots?" And but, I told the young kids, I go, "I think they're jealous." They told me, "Oh, fuck them. You're cool. You're with us." Right. And so I'm honored to get to hang with them. Right. And we talk about Greg with such reverence and such the man, and just we look up to him so much, And it's so interesting is the way he navigates through the open mic scene, Mm-hmm. But he's Greg Warren. But there's a part of him, I think, that wants to be kind of,
Yeah, that's true. Like, it's like he wants to hang.
You know what? That's what I mean. Because he walked by us one time. We were all out in front of the Westport, and Andre was like, "I just said something." I'm like, "Oh, we should just tell him to come on over. Hey, come over, shoot the shit with us a little bit. What happened? How was your weekend?" And so we're asking what he's doing. He would love that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So don't be afraid to talk to him. He's obviously accessible.
Yeah, he wouldn't be here if he didn't. I mean, he's here to test out jokes, but also like...
Right. And I trust these young guys because, to be honest with you, they have reinvigorated my love for stand-up. When I started doing stand-up, first out here I was enjoying myself and writing new stuff. But then I started hanging out with these guys and shooting the shit and like the hang, like you say, the hang. And just how important, how fun that is, right? I mean... I went through the same thing for many years in LA where it'd be like 1 or 2 in the morning in LA and we're all at a breakfast spot at the end of the night, out in the parking lot trying to force ourselves to get in the car and go home because we had to get up the next morning, go to work, and we're all going to see each other the next night anyway. Mm-hmm. But the hang was just so much fun. It's like, all right, we got to go. This is it. Let's go. And then I'm experiencing the same thing here. With hanging out with the comedians, comedians love to talk about comedy, right? You like to talk about, and not just talk shit, but talk about, well, what are your goals? What do you see yourself doing and stuff?
Yeah.
And so interesting is, I was telling Yoshi, one of the things I've noticed that the difference between in St. Louis, at least in my opinion, the difference between comedians that have only been doing it, say, a year and a half in, but really have been grinding, and the ones that have been doing it 10 or 12 years is not that far, you know what I mean? So I'm hanging out with these guys thinking, oh, they've been doing comedy 4 or 5 years. And then afterward, our conversation is like, oh, no, I just started in December. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, shit, I'm sorry. Shit.
You can really tell the people who are putting in the reps and putting in the time and putting in the, you know, because they get better and they keep improving, and then there's other people who kind of just
go through the motions. Andre is so impatient. He's very young. He's 21.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so anyway, he's like, I just want to, you know, and I'm like, listen, just keep doing your thing. And in 2 years, we'll be standing out this parking lot after work the weekend and laughing about it. Mm-hmm. You know? I go, you're so young right now. You're almost, I don't know what the word is, like what's a person who's not a phenomenon, but they're young.
Oh, the prodigy?
Prodigy. I go, you're a prodigy. To be this into stand-up at this age, I can't even imagine that. I didn't start till I was 42 years old. Mm-hmm. And I'm standing out in the parking lot, 64 years old, taking advice from him. You know, I go, we're on the same level playing field here. We're both trying to get work in this club. You know?
Yeah.
I've been doing it a lot longer, but we both, that's what comedy does to you. It brings you down to equal terms. It puts you on the same footing as Greg Warren.
Yeah.
You know, you might have been doing the same work and jobs at him, but you're on the same work area.
Yeah. That's the thing that, well, also he's young, so he doesn't understand that, like, sometimes the shittiest parts of your life are the things you remember the best, or the things you look back on. Because nobody ever looks back on the days when everything went perfect and stuff, and they're like, oh, that was a good day. Like, you look back to the hard times, the times that sucked, the bombs, I stayed out till 2 a.m. and then I had to get up at 6 a.m. for work, and you know, like, that's the stuff that you're going to remember. Yeah. You know, that's the stuff that you're going to hang out with and talk about when you... Every
headliner I've ever worked with, when I was hanging out in the green room, not everyone, but all of them, like Russell Peters would say all the time, he'd say, man, Cole, I just want to come hang with you and grind in LA sometime, hit some open mics. I'm like, well, anytime, obviously. Yeah. We'll just go to the place, you'll go up. Then I'll get to do a set, then we'll go to the next place, you'll go up right away. Yeah. Otherwise, I put my name on the list. They usually have me close the show at the bars in LA where I'd be hanging all the time. So that was my thing. But he wanted to do it because he missed hanging out.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm saying. Greg is the same way. When he leaves Westport, he walks by us. Sure, he's not going to join us and talking about comedy like we're talking about comedy. But he does like being part of the group, and we should never let him just walk off again like that. Just say, hey, come over here.
Yeah, or just ask. Just be like, hey, you got anywhere to be?
Yeah.
And then, you know, worst he can say is...
Say hello. Just give us a second. He would love that.
Yeah, plus what's the worst he can say? No. You know? They're like, I got to get home. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. All right, take care. Have a good night. And he's such a nice guy that he's not going to be like, screw you losers, I'm going, you know, whatever.
It's one of the most beautiful things about stand-up comedy is that stand-up comedians have such a reverence for each other. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a love because I think that on some level, comedians know that other comedians have went through the same shit and the same doubt and the same anxiety and all the stuff that you go through. And it's interesting. I don't know what it is. It's like I don't know. It's
like a fraternity.
Yeah, fraternity. I liken to like baseball a little bit. Baseball players, you know, because baseball players, the veterans help the younger ones, you know, get along the way. And if the younger ones are doing something stupid, there's a movie called Bull Durham, which is a great example of this. Kevin Costner plays a catcher that's been in the minors for 13 years or something, which is, you know, not really a notorious great thing in the minors. For his name's Crash Davis, and he's brought in to school this young guy played by Tim Robbins, who's the young pitcher, Nuke LaRouche, who's the sure thing that's going to go to the show. and he's, you know, trying to tell him, you know, how it is. And Nuke's very cocky, young, and, well, what would you know? You've been, you know, and you never been to the show. And he says, I was in the show. And I said, he was really? And then everybody stopped talking. Everybody started listening. Yeah, I was in the show for 3 days, 3 most glorious days of my life. You know, the women, the legs, women have brains and legs that go on forever. And the pitcher's got breaking balls that'll break 3 feet right in front of the plate. You know? In other words, there's goods and bads, you know? And he goes, but it was like, yeah, I've been to the show. I had a taste of it. And all the kids are around him, like, listening. Yeah, Bull Durham, it's his name of the movie. But
that's a great, it was Susan Sarandon, right?
Yeah. And she's sleeping with all the...
Yeah, she's kind of the roadie. Yeah, the groupie.
Yeah, she's the minor league groupie.
Yeah. Whoa. What a real mediocre title to shoot for in life, right? A minor
if you
team.
love baseball and having sex with baseball players.
Yeah, I guess so.
She likes the game, and she liked the camaraderie. She liked being around the game.
Which is why that's like comedy. That's what we like about it. It's like comedians don't respect anything except for other comedians. Especially like... Yeah,
comedians are self-centered, and absolutely, we're the worst.
Well, I mean, you as soon as you tell somebody like, hey, you can't joke about that, the first thing they're going to do is write a joke about it. You know, there's nothing, you know, school shootings or abortion or whatever, like... They don't, nothing is respected. You know, nothing is sacred. They're going to write, but don't talk shit about one of their, you know, higher, like upperclassmen, so to speak, because like, that's the only thing comedians respect is like, even if it's not your style of comedy, like if you don't like clean comedy, you still like Greg Warren, you know, like you don't, you separate.
Right.
So
you know, and I've watched Greg now for 9 months or something like that, and I tell the young guys this is the same thing with any headliner that I've known or worked or watched over the years. When you first I worked with a guy named Jimmy Pardo. It's one of my first paying gigs outside of LA at a club called Hornblowers. I was the host. Jimmy Pardo, his thing is always funny, you know, very funny guy. And another guy, Mike, I'm blanking on his name, from Chicago, was the feature. But I worked that weekend with him, and I remember driving home the first night and calling my brother in the car, telling him, man, this Jimmy Pardo, he is so funny. I'm so far away from him. He was just so hilarious. And I go, shit, he did this ad-lib thing that just crushed the room. And then I went back for the next night, Saturday night, and he did the same ad-lib thing. So, okay, wait a minute, that's part of his act. He fooled me last night. And so, that was all set up, right? So he comes a little bit closer back. It's like stars. When you first meet them, they're so far out there, they're like, they're untouchable. he's so far out there. But then over time, they come closer to earth and closer to earth and closer to earth and closer to earth, till at some point you're watching them and you're suddenly on the same ground that they are on, and you think back to, wow, I remember when I first watched this guy. I'll never be like that. But you know what, I don't need to be like that. Why was I even thinking? Why was I wasting? I'm me. I'm going to be me. He's going to be him. You know what I mean? I don't have to be clean.
Like the thing I tell a lot of people when they're first starting out, especially down south where I live, because there's a lot of people who are like, I've been thinking about trying it. I've been thinking about, you know, and you just got to do it. But some of them that do it, they get upset after like they've had a bad set. And I'm like, why are you so sad? And they're like, well, because I want to be the best. And I'm like, that's never going to happen. You're never going to be, there will always be someone better than you. Go out and just try to be the best version of you that you can be. Like, stop trying to compete with other people, because show business is competitive on the business side, not on the show side.
Right.
You know, like, just try to get better yourself. Don't try to beat anybody else. Just be you, and be the best version of you, you know? Right. And you can be upset after a bomb. Like, well, I've bombed before and cried for 2 hours on the way home. Just like, I'm such an idiot. But don't get mad because someone else is better than you. Like, that's just the worst attitude to have at this. Like, just go out and have fun and try to make your jokes better. And then, I don't know.
You really touched on it right there. You said just be you, the best you. I worked with a guy named Art LaFleur. He's an actor. He just passed away this last year from Parkinson's. He was one of the greatest guys I ever met in Hollywood, and he was super funny and super good actor. He worked all the time. He was in a movie called where they were smuggling weed back, Air America, with Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr. He was the crazy pilot on that movie. They were smuggling weed for the CIA, I think it was. And then he also played Babe Ruth in a movie called Sandlot, where he popped out of the closet and talked to the kids.
I'm familiar with Sandlot. I haven't heard. I didn't hear.
He's the one that played Babe Ruth. His name's
that's
Art
awesome.
LaFleur.
He was in The Replacements, wasn't he? Yeah.
Awesome guy. One of my best buddies in Hollywood that I got to work with and got to know. And we worked on a show together for HBO in Hawaii. And I got cast on the show. And I was building the sets. Mm-hmm. But I had done some acting, so they had me read for a part, and I got it. And I was talking to him one time about show business. And I said, you know what, Art, obviously you work all the time. You've been doing this a long time. I go, I'm a little confused sometimes about acting. I know I'm supposed to have an objective to be going for, and I'm just like, he said, I go, is there any advice you could give me? And he said, the best thing I could probably tell you, Cole, is to just be yourself. And when he said it to me, I was like, oh, fuck, great. Be myself. What kind of advice is this? I've been doing all this stuff, and this is what you're going to tell me, just to be myself? And then after years go by and stuff, and then you start to do comedy. And he taught acting in LA and stuff. He was a great acting teacher as well. I took some classes with him. You start to realize, well, yeah, that's kind of the key to not just acting or comedy or everything. Because when you tell somebody to be yourself as an actor, it's very confusing. Well, I'm supposed to be this guy who's in Vietnam I'm the drunk doorman who's always asleep, or waking up, and I'm in Vietnam. I'm supposed to be myself. It's so confusing, right? But then really that comes to, it's your best bet to just be yourself in any scenario of life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if yourself is a rotten, dirty, rotten person, that you're up to malintent, and maybe that you don't want to be yourself. But really, he was giving me the best advice I'd ever gotten. I just didn't know it at the time. It took me years. I told him years later about it. I go, remember what you told me in Hawaii? And I go, fuck, you were so right. I just was too stupid to understand what you were saying to me. Mm-hmm. Just be yourself. In other words, you could be playing a role as a different person, but you're really going to want to find the things about you that are, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To create that role. So, like, some people become the person that they're playing, but really, if you can get yourself, it's so hard to explain, you know what I mean? It's a little confusing, right?
Yeah.
Acting's confusing.
Yeah, I don't know much about acting, but just comedy-wise, I know that it doesn't work. Like, you've ever seen, like, comedians that are starting out and they go on stage? I just got a Texas guy. Okay, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I'm listening now.
Have you ever seen comedians that go up and they it's almost like they're doing another comedian's like cadence or mannerisms, like
because they want to be like that person.
And Patrice O'Neill used to call it having babies. Like those are your babies. When you get famous, other comedians try to be like you, and that's your babies or whatever. And how it just doesn't work because you can't be somebody else. You have to be you. And that's the thing. That's kind of once people figure that out, and then they start to be them, or they have their own voice. Once you get your own voice, then I mean, it changes everything. Like, just find out who you are and then go be that. Be the funniest version of you. That's
yes.
That's the only advice I can give somebody, you know?
I you know what? It's just crazy. I don't know. Stand up, I want to think that I have some kind of idea of what I'm doing, but I'm a pretty free thinker. And so I get up there and I know what the jokes I'm going to do, mm-hmm. but I enjoy spur of the moment. I enjoy talking to the audience. You know, I engage.
Yeah.
I'm not a big go up there, just dive in right into my material. I like to observe, check the room out, you know.
Well, that's hard to do, especially if you're the host and you're not supposed to talk to the room. You know,
I don't believe in that. Because you know what? I see too many hosts at Funny Bone just bomb for 10 minutes straight doing mm-hmm. their material where it's like, oh, dude, if it's not working, at least acknowledge it's not working. Yeah. Acknowledge that they're there at least. Yeah. You know? That's a good start.
Yeah,
like that.
when you see, yeah, that's for every. It feels like for every rule in comedy, there's an exception. Yeah. But like when I was first learning how to host, like all the managers and all the owners that I talked to would tell me, you don't do crowd work. You never talk to the crowd. You go up there, you do your material, you plug the drink specials, the servers' names, right. the website, upcoming shows. Then you hit the credits for the next comedian coming up. You know, like you are strictly there for business. Everybody else can play with the crowd. Everybody else can have fun and interact, but you just have to be professional. And it sucks. I hated doing that. I hate it. But it's also sometimes you kind of learn
I got told not to do crowd work when I was hosting the open mic at St. Charles, and I was like, what, no crowd work at all? And he's like, 0. And I'm like, well, that's what I'm getting paid to host this open mic, by the way, too. Mm-hmm. 0. So there's that as well.
Yeah.
Fuck off. It's basically Elliot.
Oh, is that who told you to do it? Yeah.
And you know what? I don't mind. He was just giving me the rules. That's probably what Matt wants, you know, who knows. But, you know, they weren't liking my material, so I talked to the audience a little bit, and I might have talked to them a little bit too much. I might have done a little bit too much crowd work. But I don't really adhere to like just going up and doing all the material and not saying anything. I mean,
here's my thought on that, is that if you do something the club owner doesn't like, he's going to tell you.
Right.
Or he's going to talk to you.
Right.
So when you get a message from someone else about what the club owner wants, it's like, is that what the club owner wants from everybody, or that's just what the club owner wants from you?
Yeah, well, that's interesting.
Because sometimes you have to look at the source telling you what the club owner wants, absolutely. And you're like,
listen, I would have taken that message way differently several months ago.
Yeah.
But my experience with everybody and the rooms and stuff has led me to like, well, it was my judgment that I needed to like get the audience back, and then I got them back, and then my material was working.
I mean,
so I wouldn't have done anything different.
If you're brand new to it and the club owner doesn't know you or whatever, then maybe, but go up to them before the show and ask them like, hey, how do you want me to do this? Do you want me to jump right into material? What specials? Like, don't just talk to some guys are like scared to go talk to the club owner or the manager or whatever, and it's like, why? Just they're people. I mean, just like Greg Warren, you know, they may not want to hang because they're super busy, but get there early and just walk up. Hey, thanks for having me this weekend. What are the servers' names, and what specials do you want me to hit? What shows do you want me to plug? Like, ask them questions, develop a rapport with them, and then after a while, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, this guy's good. He knows what he's doing. You know.
That's a good point. It's the weekend I did at St. Charles. Mm-hmm. I hosted. One of the most difficult things over the weekend I had was the stupid announcements. You know, at the end.
The lottery, the charity ticket. Did you do that?
Well, there was that too. We had the charity ticket. We're going to be doing this afterwards, but then, you know, all right, give it up for one more time for this. Now you guys ready for your headliner? Give it up for the server. Getting them all in.
Yeah.
So Ronaldo was perfect because I worked with the weekend with him, featuring and Duke. was headliner.
Oh yeah, Duke Taylor. Yep.
Yeah, he's really cool. So it could have been a better weekend. And Ronaldo said, "Hey," and pulled me aside and talked to me about the announcements. Get the announcements down. And so I did, and I texted him the next morning that I'm gonna nail those announcements tonight. And sure enough, I didn't screw them up. I got it right, like the last 3 shows or whatever. But the first night or 2, I think I fucked up the announcements.
Max Price did the same thing with me. I did a weekend with him and James Johan.
That's the guy who set the record, right, for the biggest audience at Funny Bone Westport.
He might have.
Yeah, it's a plaque on the wall, right?
Is it?
The bar.
Oh, nice. But he pulled me aside after like the first show on Thursday and was like, "Hey, your material's fine. Don't worry about it. This is what you need to focus on. Boom, 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 boom." And he laid out a list of things, and I focused on it and I studied it. And then the next night, it was Friday, we had 2 shows. I did the shows. Afterwards, he came up to me, he was like, "Much better." He was like, "Good." And I keep that formula, like I have it written down, go up, get 3 cheers from the audience. "Are you guys having a good time tonight?" Right. I said, "Are you having it?" That's not good enough. It's Friday or whatever. Then the servers' names, then your headliners in the back of the room, make some noise, let them hear you. And by the time you get those 3 cheers, then do a little bit of material, then end on a punchline. Give yourself 30 seconds to be like, make sure you're tipping your servers. Your next comedian is the 2019 funniest person, whatever, whatever the credits might be. Then in between the feature and the headliner, go up, get them to cheer once, because then they're going to be like, "Oh, I like this guy. He's fun," and then hit some quick boom, 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 updates, shows, website, whatever, then straight into the credits of the headliner. Once you hit the headliner's credits, call them up, and then just at the end, again, re-hit the website, re-hit the upcoming shows, hit the charity ticket they do.
Right.
Then one more time for your feature, for your headliner, I'm Cole Young, good night, and it's when you follow that formula.
To be honest with you, it had been a number of years since I'd opened. Worked as an opener. I've mostly featured. So I'd the last time I had to do all the announcements, I believe, was up in Reno, Tahoe. And the guy does a different format up there where the host features. So it's a host feature type thing. Yep. The host does a set. Then he usually brings up a local comedian. Then the host goes back up and does another set. Then maybe one more local, and then the host does another set.
Yeah.
So the host is like doing like 3 7-minute sets or something like that, or 1 5 and 2 7s or something like that. And then you got all these announcements, and he's got all these giveaways and tickets and prizes and stuff. And he's a good guy, the booker, but he gets a little amped up. But one time I went through all the announcements, and I came off stage, and I got them all, and he's like, "What happened to the announcements?" I'm like, "I just did them." He's like, "What?" And then the headliner was standing there, and he's like, he did do them. Mm. I'm like, but other than that, it was just kind of caught me off guard. It's like, of all the things to fuck up,
Yeah.
But my shows went good at St. Charles. I got Instagram followers from the shows I just hosted at.
People are after the shows at St. Charles, I always get a couple people that'll come up to me and, "What's your Facebook? What's your Instagram? Yeah. Can we take a picture? Can we do it?" And it's a lot of times when you do a club, people just walk right past you and go to the headliner if they even talk to anybody at all, Yeah. But for some reason at St. Charles, there's always 1 or 2 people that are like,
"Yeah, no, it's really, I think I'm just so much more comfortable over there, probably because Matt's not over there. It's just a more relaxing atmosphere."
Well, Kevin, the manager that runs it, he's awesome.
He's awesome.
And he's super, he's friendly, and you can, you can talk to him, and he likes to hang out, and
yeah, he's real cool.
Yeah.
He wasn't there last night, unfortunately. I don't know where he was.
That sucks.
I know.
He's always fun, and plus you want him on your side, you want him to like you, so that way hey, you need anybody this weekend? Or, I'm going to be in town. You got a host?
You know what? He told me one time, he goes, Cole, I want you to come down this weekend. I'm going to give you a guest spot. And I'm like, really? And I go, sure, what night? You want me to come down? He goes, come down Friday night. And then I ran into Bukovich like Thursday night, and he goes, oh, well, Craig Conant's coming in, and I opened for him last time, so he said I could do a guest spot. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. I'm going to just show up anyway because Kevin told me to.
Yeah.
And as soon as I go in there, Kevin's like, oh, Cole, I'm so sorry. I had no idea he was going to do this. I'm like, no, I just came to support the show. And he goes, can you come back tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And so I had somebody else host my mic at American Legion. I came over and I did the guest spot on Sunday.
He's so cool. I did that weekend 2 weekends ago with PJ Walsh, like we were talking about earlier, and originally there wasn't a Sunday night show.
Did Matt book you for that?
Mm-hmm. I was at Westport and just hanging out, like you said.
I haven't been booked by Matt yet. Ronaldo booked me but he probably booked me for Matt.
Yeah. Matt's awesome. You just got to once you get to know him, like
I know
he never stands still. Like he's always moving.
Listen, I go down there, just hang out the bar. I don't say a word and just let him get used to seeing me around. Mm-hmm. Like I know he refers to me as the old guy because I guess they were talking. I guess my name came up and he said something. Is that the old guy?
He one day there was a guy who came up to me after a show and was telling me. He was giving me advice on hosting, but it was the wrong advice.
Right.
And Matt thought the guy talking to me thought his name was Eric. So I was walking by later and he said, hey, don't listen to anything that Eric told you because it's fucking wrong, like that. And I was like, I'm Eric. And he was like, no, not you. The other guy that you were talking to. Who was it? And I told him and he goes, yeah, he's an idiot. He doesn't work here. You're doing good. Just ignore him. And I was like, okay. Like it was so weird to have him yell my name at me, but talking about someone else. And I was like, what did I do?
Bukovich told me a funny story about what Matt did one time. He came off stage after hosting his first weekend there, right? And Matt came up and said, hey, I really like that joke about to get him in close to shake his hand, right? And so Zach was all excited, like, oh, wow, he's giving me some response. So he went to shake his hand, and then Matt pulled him in close and said, you think you got a fucking shirt with a collar on so you could bring so you don't look like every other idiot in the audience? And when he told me that, I laughed so hard. I'm like, all right, I kind of like this guy.
Yeah.
So that's what I figured out. My tactic is just to hang out there. There's no quitting, Cole. I mean, you can look into my eyes. You can tell I'm not going anywhere. I just hang at the bar, work on my set. But that's absolutely the club I want to work at.
Oh, yeah.
When I work my first weekend there, I'll be so damn happy.
It's so much fun there.
And I've been told it's going to happen, so just be patient.
Yeah, you'll get there. The best advice I would give you for that is, you know what Matt looks like, obviously.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
And he never stands still. So I always
the only time I've talked to him is, hey, buddy, do you need another water? This is what he said to me.
Yeah.
Or hey, buddy, did you want to go into the showroom and watch the show? So...
he's running around. So every time I see him, I just, hey Matt, how's it going? Hey, I just do something like that just to get him to make eye contact for just a split second. And then a lot of times after that, we will have another conversation throughout the night because he's like, oh, I've seen this guy. And there's so many comedians that are like, oh, there's Matt. I don't want to talk to him. And they put their head down. I'm like, what are you doing, man? He's the one that books you. He will give you money if you talk to him and make friends with him.
He knows I love that club. If I'm not working on the weekends and I was in town, I'd be down there every Saturday night for the second show, just sitting at the bar talking to Sean, waiting to see if there was room to slide in at the back and watch the headliners from New York or LA.
Sean O'Brien, the bartender. Yeah, he's great too. You can't talk about Westport without talking about Sean O'Brien.
Sean O'Brien is, so this one time this is how I knew I was in with Greg and Sean is, I walked in and Greg's sitting there by the TV monitor and Sean's there and Sean's like, hey buddy, you want water? Ice water? And I'm like, yeah, thanks Sean. And Greg's like, don't be nice to Sean, Cole. Everybody hates him. And I'm like, oh no, I love Sean. And he goes, well, you're new here. You haven't been here long enough. Ask around town. Everybody hates him. Yeah. And I knew right then, I'm like, all right. That's when people fuck with you, you're in.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of the sign.
Yeah.
When somebody says, a lot of young guys don't really understand that. You know, it's like, he's always fucking ready. You know what? Didn't you figure that out in high school? I learned that in 7th grade when the seniors that I was the water boy for their football team. I wasn't even in 7th grade yet. I was in 6th grade, and we came to visit the high school. They locked me up in one of the football lockers, the cages where you put all your uniform in. So all the 6th graders went back to elementary school, and I was locked into, well, they liked me. They knew me. They were fucking around with me. And I knew them because I was walking after practice home because I lived next door to a couple of the best football players, and we would talk football and stuff on the way home. You know, and I was only in 6th and 7th grade. So I knew that a long time ago when guys that are above you fuck around with you, that's a good sign.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I was in the military, and that's a big part of it. So it was, you know, if they're not talking to you, it's bad. You know, so that's like...
Which branch of the military?
Marines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You and Will.
Yeah, Will.
And Jeremy. There's another one. Jenin, I think, did some...
Did he?
That's what I believe so.
Oh, I need to talk to him about... I've talked to him a couple times, but we've never talked about military before. But yeah, Will was ahead of me.
I knew Will was military the moment I watched his set.
Yeah.
I knew he was military, and then somebody's telling me, well, he never talks about it. I'm like, what? Haven't you ever watched his QT? That's all. He's even doing some of the Marine stuff when he's in line.
Yeah.
I can spot that a mile away.
I've tried to talk to him before. We just don't talk about it that much. I don't know why. Right. Like, I don't have any bits about the military.
Where were you?
I was stationed at Camp Pendleton, which is halfway between. You're a LA boy. You know exactly.
Down there a bunch of times.
Yeah, I was there for 6 years. I did 2 deployments. I was in the infantry for 4 years, and then I was a marksmanship instructor for 2. And I loved it. I loved it a lot, and I really missed it when I got out. But for whatever reason, I don't ever write material about it. I guess it's because it's so far
removed.
Yeah, like, and I don't think it's relatable. That's another thing. Like, I remember
Will's found a way to make it relatable by comparing QT to his military experience.
Yeah. So
the efficiency.
That's what's good about that bit is like he's found a way to like weave it together, you know, make it relatable. But I can't
do it with your kids.
Yeah, I've thought about it, but sometimes I used to do a bit about like.
Didn't you say you were a marksmanship?
Mm-hmm.
What do you have, boys or girls?
I have 1 boy and 1 girl.
Oh, the boys, marksmanship in the bathroom is probably key.
That's one thing I need to work on him with too, because I don't know what.
How old is he?
He's 7.
Oh.
He's so he's tiny, but he still, for whatever reason, he doesn't like to touch his own penis. Like when he goes to the bathroom, he just like puts his hands on his thighs, and I'm like, buddy, that's not cutting it because you're going everywhere. Like, I'm like, you got to aim better. And he just, I don't know, I can't get him to. I mean, I know in a couple years, I'm sure he won't take his hands off of it, you know. But for now, he's just like,
if he doesn't aim it, you'll have his mom come in and steer it for him. Tell him you want mom to steer the ship.
Yeah, be like, buddy, you gotta. I'm about to get some Cheerios or something and put them in the.
I'll tell you what, he would immediately probably grab it because the last thing he wants is for her to come in.
Yeah, he doesn't want anybody to like. Ever since we stopped, like giving him baths, like he started bathing himself, he really hates it. Like,
tell him you let mom take the rudder.
Yeah, he probably would be like, no.
He probably would understand what you're talking about too, even though he's only 7. You know what I mean?
Well, I got to figure out a way. Yeah, I gotta work the marksmanship into him because I'm about to put Cheerios in the toilet or floating candles or something and be like, all right, buddy, sink the candle or put out the flame or something like that. Like play fireman or something.
Yeah, a little candle. It's because you got to fetch it out of there.
Yeah. Yeah, he would flush it for sure. He wouldn't think about it. He the other day we caught him he uses like wet wipes or whatever, and he tried to flush them, and we're like, buddy, you can't flush those at all. And he goes, well, there's only 10 of them. And I was like, 10 of them? Why are you using so many? There's only 90 in a pack. Right. You get 9 uses out of this, and we have to buy. And he was like, oh, 10's a good number. And I was like, buddy, you need like 1, maybe 2 if it's really messy. And he's big into numbers, though.
Do you mind if I ask you how old you are?
I'm 32.
32? Oh, yes, you're younger than mine. I have a 39-year-old son.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
He's a doctor.
What's the best way to raise kids, do you think?
Oh, man. I don't know these days, you know.
Yeah.
It's so confusing for kids. I feel bad for them these days. When my boy was young, we didn't have a lot of money, and we were down in L.A., and so I raised him myself for a year. Him and his mom and I split up, and she moved back to Northern California, and he stayed with me for a while in LA until she got her shit together, and then he moved back up and went to school up there. But we didn't have a lot of money, so we'd do stuff that was right around our house. Like we played catch with the baseball, and it turned out to be he was an incredible baseball player. He played t-ball and Little League, American Legion, high school, and his team was nationally ranked, and he got called up by the Philadelphia Phillies on draft day, and he could have signed with the Phillies and played as a pitcher.
That's awesome.
And
so
he's a really good player.
And then how did he transition to becoming a doctor? How did he?
You know what? He went to school. He quit baseball, which I hated, but he quit it. He just was tired of hanging out with rednecks and wanted to travel the world and stuff. So he went and traveled the world for a year. Then he went to school and he got a BS in geology and stuff, and then he realized he told me he wanted to get into physical therapy because there was tons of work jobs. So he went back to medical school, physical therapy school, and paid for it himself and got through it and became a doctor of physical therapy. But it was tough. He said it was a really tough program. It's like 2 or 3 years.
My brother-in-law is a physical therapist, and he's talked about how
difficult it is.
Yeah, he got a doctorate.
But if you get through it, the demand, he just got hired. My son was the head of this beautiful Sky Lakes Hospital physical therapy department at 39 years old in Klamath Falls, but he got offered a job up at Providence Hospital up near Portland for a lot more, you know, and he would get to work with athletes and stuff like that, something that he wanted to do. So now he's got up there, and he's got a place up there in one of the suburbs of Portland, him and his girlfriend.
That's awesome. That's I think that you might be the most successful parent I've ever met.
I know I texted his mom the other day because I had this stupid thing on Facebook that said, oh, today's Son's Day, and I text her, oh, when your son's a doctor, every day's Son's Day. She's like, man, oh shit.
That's great.
I was like, I'm a complete loser. He's a doctor.
So long as your kids don't grow up to be serial killers, right. I'm just like, what? So long as you're not killing, and so long as you're not eating people.
No, I'm lucky. My kid turned out well. He's always been a good kid. You know what I mean? From the get-go. So
you just think putting in time with him, being honest.
Yeah, I'm pretty honest with him, and he's hung out with me. I mean, when he used to come down, spend summers with me in L.A., he was a little guy, and I would take him on the set with me a lot. Unfortunately, he was, you know, he'd have to get up and get in the car and be on the set with me like at 6 a.m. He'd sleep under my desk sometimes. Then he'd wake up and he'd be playing. We were on a show, I worked on a show called Seventh Heaven.
Okay.
And at the time, there was an actress on the show, Jessica Biel, and she was the same exact age as my son. In fact, they share the very same birth date.
Oh,
March
that's
3rd,
cool.
1983, and she was just a tomboy back when we first started the show. She liked throwing the football and baseball and stuff, so he hung out with her all day.
That's cool.
During the shooting, with no idea that she grew up to be like beautiful.
Yeah, I think she's
married to Justin
Timberlake. Yeah,
and she's a great person too. She's a really great lady.
That's awesome.
And so I joke about him. I go, "Do your friends know that you used to hang out with Jessica Biel?" And he goes, "A couple." He goes, "The girlfriend knows."
Yeah,
obviously.
She was. When Seventh Heaven came out, because what year was that? Probably
96.
96. So I was 6. So Jessica Biel was one of like my first big crushes. Yeah. So I can't imagine, like I would have been like, you know.
I didn't think about it, you know. So
yeah.
This lady, this girl, this kid that was on the show, her mom, they'd take my son, you know, during shooting. If she wasn't shooting, they'd go to the beach or they'd go to Magic Mountain. They'd do stuff all the time. And I thought, well, at least my son's not stuck here watching this boring filmmaking or TV show making, you know, while he's here visiting his dad. I mean, we'd do some stuff afterwards. Yeah. We'd go to the Dodger Stadium and do stuff, but I was working a lot. And so I was lucky. I had a neighbor who was an actor. Mm-hmm. This is an interesting story. In L.A., I moved to L.A. in 1985, and I lived in an area called Sherman Oaks, right off Ventura Boulevard, which is in the valley. Mm-hmm. And I had a neighbor, and he was a good-looking guy. He was always around during the day. I got a job working at a cabinet company or something because I had carpentry skills. And so we lived right across the street from where my son was going to kindergarten. He would go and pick up my son and bring him to his apartment right across from mine. I'd go pick him up when I got off work. And I asked my buddy, you know, what do you do? And he goes, well, I'm an actor. And I'm like, oh, it's a good job, you know. I never see him leave the house. He had acted like in the olden days on shows like Bonanza, and Gunsmoke.
Oh, yeah.
And he was kind of a hard-charging character, you know what I mean, with Hollywood and stuff. And he came up during the days of when Rat Patrol, that's an old show that used to be on. It's like maybe even black and white. And there was a star of it, Christopher George. And my buddy, my neighbor's name was Preston Pierce. And he was a kind of an obscure guy, but he was friends with all kinds of Hollywood people. And so he became one of my neighbors and my buddies, and he liked our band that we had. We'd moved down there. So he started hanging out with us at the band and following us to gigs and stuff. And then he started getting back a little bit into the party scene, which he hadn't done in many years. Mm-hmm. So we led him astray.
Yeah.
But he pulled out of it, but then he ended up passing away pretty young, like at 51 years old. And he's just, you know what, I had a really fairy tale time down in Hollywood. From the guy I moved in next door to him, my neighbor was having an affair with William Shatner at the time, you know, Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
And my son and I would be out front of our apartment playing catch, and William Shatner would drive up in his T.J. Hooker costume still on, costume still on from shooting, and go in and, you know, hook up with my neighbor. And I would tell my son, you don't know who that is, but that's Captain Kirk of Star Trek.
That's awesome. I know,
I'm from
that really is like a fairy tale.
I know, I'm from this little town called Quincy, California. It's only 5,000 people. Now I'm living in Hollywood. My one neighbor was on Bonanza. The other neighbor sleeping with William Shatner. This is Hollywood. And then I worked at this, I used to go get beer every night. I used to be a drinker. And I'd get beer at this store called Tony's Liquor Store, and I got to know them. And there would be celebrities that would come in there, like Eddie Van Halen was a regular there. So I got to see Eddie a lot.
That's awesome.
I know, because I put a new countertop on the liquor store. One time I was doing there. He came down like 2 or 3 times. He'd buy 2 big Mickey Big Mouths at a time. He'd put them in his flight pants. The first trip he came down in his motorcycle, Harley, you know, and took off. Then he came down, it was like a Lamborghini. And I go, why don't you just get a 6-pack? He's like, brother, when I can't drive down here to get another beer, I've had too many beers.
That's a good, I mean.
And he was such a cool guy, man. And the kid that was working in the store was a guitar player who I was playing music with a little bit, who knew every Eddie Van Halen lick and everything. And every time he worked in the store, he'd have Van Halen playing on the background, right? And Eddie would come in, he goes, man, I love your choice of music. And one time he came in, he went and goes, you know what, just hang on, hang tight. And the kid's name was Mike. He goes, hey, Mike, just hang on. Say, I got something in the car for you. He went out, pulled a guitar out of the trunk, brought it in, just plopped it down on the counter. And that's the kid's like, what's this? He goes, that's for you. Because you got such damn good music taste. And he gave him a guitar, one of his, cool guitars with all the artwork on it. He said, you want to go to the show at the Forum? He said, well, yeah, of course. He goes, I'll send a limo. Give me your address. I'll send a limo by to pick you up. You and your girlfriend, bring you to the Forum, to the show, and hang out backstage.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so
Eddie
cool.
Van Halen.
Who do you think's the best guitar player?
Oh, there's so many good ones.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul Gilbert is right up there. He played with Mr. Big in a band called Racer X. A lot of people don't know about him, but he's fantastic. Of course, there's Yngwie Malmsteen. There's different guitar players too. There's electric guitar players like Guitar Gods, like Ozzy.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
What about like B.B. King? Like, do you like that kind of?
My dad loved B.B. King.
Yeah,
that was his jam.
I never got into like rock and roll.
Really?
Or that much. I mean, not really. It's such a broad now.
Like blues or jazz?
I kind of like. I mean, I like both.
George Benson?
I don't
remember George. Okay.
I know. So I played trumpet for a long time. So I was kind of like Herb Alpert.
Miles Davis.
Yeah, I liked that, but I really got into B.B. King because I saw him one time. My dad and I went down to Memphis when I was young, and it was early-ish, and we went to Beale Street, and it's not as it wasn't as dangerous back then as it is now, because now you hear about it's all kinds of stuff. But he has B.B. King's like blues club, and we watched, and he was a big old guy, and we stood outside and we looked through the window, and you could see him on the stage, and he was just just going, and everybody in the audience was just swaying back and forth, and like I remember that was one of the coolest moments, like, because I don't know anything about music. I'm terrible at it.
Well, how did you end up playing trumpet? Through school? Yeah,
through school. You had to
school band.
Kind of. It was like, so in junior high, there wasn't a marching band. It was just like, in 6th grade, they took all of the students and put you in the cafeteria, and then they would play notes and tones on through this CD player. Right. And you would have a little like Scantron sheet, and it would say, is this one higher or lower than the note before it? And you'd have to fill it out. And then if you scored high enough, you wrote, and then at the end you write down what are the 3 instruments you would be interested in playing. Yeah. And I just wrote like trumpet, guitar, drums. And I don't even think they offered guitar or drums at the next level. But then in 7th grade, I got picked to play the trumpet, and I did it for like a year and a half, and then I was like, nah.
It's fun though.
It was fun. I
mellophone.
What's that?
Mellophone. It's a small French horn, and instead of buttons like that, it's got buttons you push up and down like a trumpet.
Huh.
So it's like a French horn, but with the trumpet type keys.
Huh. I've never heard of it.
Mellophone. It's a smaller.
Mellophone.
Yeah, smaller French horn.
Oh, but I wish I would have stuck with it. The older I got, the more...
It's a gay French horn.
It's a gay French horn.
That's so stupid.
But so you said Eddie Van Halen, Ozzy.
Well, yeah, I like... I don't even know why I said Ozzy, but because I was listening to... But that was Randy Rhoads playing on Crazy Train. Mm-hmm. Randy Rhoads' kid went to the same elementary school as I did, and I didn't even know who he was, but my brother was a screaming guitar player. That's why we moved to Hollywood. My brother was such a good guitar player, and he studied at GIT. He knew a bunch of the top people down there, Robin Ford and stuff, so he went down there and said, I know some people, let's go down and play and record our songs. We had songs he had written. I played bass. And we moved down there, and we put together a band down there. It was awesome. we recorded, and then we kind of got sidetracked and started playing cover tunes in bars to make money and partying. And then we got away from doing the covers, originals. But we did do some recording down there, and we met some great musicians we played with who went on to play with the Beach Boys. And another guy who was a drummer of ours. He was a real good friend of the Porcaro family. Jeff Porcaro was a drummer for Toto.
Okay.
Called Toto.
Oh, yeah.
And Mike Porcaro plays as well. He's a keyboardist. And this guy who played with us, his name was Jeff Crocker. My brother always says, man, we should have just kept it you, me, and Crocker and just recorded, just the three of us. Things would be so different now. And I'm like, well, you can't look back. Because this guy was just such a tasty drummer. If you listen to Porcaro's drumming on Toto, he's got a unique style of drumming. It's almost like a swing type of... do you think of like songs like Rosanna?
Mm-hmm.
All I want to do in the middle of the... Hold you tight, Rosanna. It's kind of...
See, I don't know anything about music. All that's interesting to me because I don't...
He's really tasty. And so we would go to this bar in LA called the Baked Potato, and it was just a little bigger in the studio. So you get to sit right next to like Steve Lukather of Toto playing his guitar. It'd be like 6 feet away from you. Nathan East is a great bass player that played with Eric Clapton and all these people. He'd be right here. It was such a great scene in the 80s in LA for rock and roll. And Eddie Van Halen had just joined up with Sammy Hagar to record the new stuff with Van Halen after David Lee Roth. So it was just a great time, and we were right in the middle of it.
So were you there during the big, like, the Rainbow Room and the...
Roxy and all that stuff, yes, of course.
So you were, that was your... Was that like your Friday night spot? Everybody was trying to go...
we were trying to play these other rooms, those were a little above us.
Yeah.
And, like you'd see the posters for those rooms on all the street signs when you go by. It'd be Leather Wolf, LA Guns, Shark Island, bands that kind of almost made it, but they didn't quite make it. They had one hit maybe or something. And so we were kind of on the peripheral. We were trying to get in. We did do some other rooms that were just original rooms, but we never got to play the Roxy.
No.
Or the Rainbow.
But I bet it was still a fun time to be around all that. Because that's like the heyday.
Guns N' Roses were playing those places at that time.
Well, those places were they still are famous. But those...
Van Halen played at the Roxy or whatever one time. It was like, sold out and lying around the block and helicopters flying. It was just a great time, and Guitar Center was going on, and just rock and roll. We played with a guy named Mike Lippy, who was known as the Guitar Doctor. And he built a lot of custom guitars for all these top guitar players. In fact, he built us both guitars. And we'd hang out in his shop and party, and talk about music.
There's a lot of talking.
There's a lot of talking, whether it's in comedy or whatever, right? There's a lot of... The hang is never... That's what kids don't really understand. The hang is not just in comedy, too. The hang is part of life.
Well, if you owned a bakery, you would probably join like a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and then or the local, and then you would go to those meetings and you would hand out free donuts or muffins or whatever, and then you would take people out, or like you would go to a bar afterwards and buy drinks for people, and you get to know them, and then that's how you like build, you network. That's what the hang is. You're networking. You're outside running premises, helping with tags, talking shit, whatever.
It's interesting because I didn't really realize the hang. My father's been doing the hang for years. My father was he retired as a Superior Court judge, but he was an attorney, and then he was a district attorney, and then he became a judge. But he really enjoyed going out and hanging out at this donut shop with all these logging truck drivers and loggers and other redneck guys, shooting the shit with them, or going and hanging out with a bunch of these liberals that were from Feather River College. That was a college up in my hometown. All these guys came up from the Bay Area, and they wanted to stop the logging, because of the spotted owl and stuff. My dad would navigate between the two groups, and he was equally comfortable hanging out with a bunch of guys that were uneducated, grew up in the woods, and because he learned from them. Mm-hmm. He would tell me the stuff that they would say, the little bits of brilliance that he'd get from these redneck.
Well, everybody has something to learn. Like, everybody has something to teach, Right. That's why it's like sometimes people talk about, like, oh, well, they're uneducated. Like, by your standard, right. But that doesn't mean that they're not educated in things that you don't know about. Like, there was I've met a lot of people, especially in the military, who you would say, well, they didn't go to college after high school, they're uneducated. But it's right. like, they know a lot about stuff that I would have never thought about. Right. Like, I knew a guy who, his family would, like, during the summers, they would just go live in the woods for a month. Like, they would just right. pack up and go out in the woods. And he knew how to survive better than anyone I've ever met in my life. Like, he'd be like, you can eat that, you can't eat that, you can right. do this, you can't do this. Like that. And it was just...
showed him.
Yeah, it was somebody who showed him. And he taught me so many things that you would never learn in a classroom or a college or whatever. Absolutely. And then you meet another guy who, his parents are Mexican immigrants, and he would teach you, like, oh, you can do that. Like, he had a different set of knowledge, and this guy had a different, like, and then you put them all together. And I've always kind of, I don't know, disliked the term uneducated, right. because it's like, oh, you didn't get a college degree, so you're uneducated. Oh. It's like, no.
The most educated people I've met have the more common sense or less street savvy sense than some of the most, uneducated people that I've met. And it goes back and forth. A funny example of that is, we were talking about me being so much older and hanging out with all these young comics. We were at Westport, this was months ago, mm-hmm. and Renato came out, and him and his girlfriend, they took off walking. He goes, "Hey, Cole, we were just talking about you, St. Charles, what are you doing tomorrow night, Sunday night?" And I'm like, "I'm hosting my open mic at American Legion." He's like, "You should come by Funny Bone, St. Charles tomorrow night." I'm like, "Oh, I would," but I'm like, he goes, "You should come by tomorrow night." And I'm like, all right. And I'm like, and then I'm like, and he walked off, and Andre's like, "Don't you understand what he's saying to you?" Mm-hmm. Dude, yeah. Do I have to make it any clearer?
Yeah.
I'll host your open mic tomorrow night.
Yeah.
You go to the St. Charles Funny Bone. I'm like, oh, yeah, So here's a kid who's living with his parents, mm-hmm. 21, right? Giving a 64-year-old man advice. And I'm walking in my car thinking of the beauty of that, We were just talking about how it brings you down. You can learn something from everybody.
Yeah.
I get more shit from that kid. Has taught me more stuff about comedy. Like, he's the one who told me to go home and watch, because he sent me a clip of Norm Macdonald, mm-hmm. 5 years into doing stand-up. I watched that clip so many times. I got to the point where I would go home, and when I get home late at night, sometimes if I can turn the TV on, not wake up anybody or something, I'll watch like some episodes of Seinfeld or something, just mindless stuff to have on in the background, so I wind down a little bit, right? But I was going home and I was watching that Norm stand-up. I'll send you.
Okay.
It's super funny, and it just shows what a genius he is so early on to be writing such great material, and what I like about his humor, because I always liked Norm. I just didn't really watch a lot of his stuff. I don't really watch a lot of other stand-up comedy, but I'm trying to do more. I've obviously watched a lot of Brian Regan. I've watched a bunch of Russell Peters. But as far as watching clips of guys live and stuff, I used to watch Dave Attell's Insomniac.
Oh, yeah.
Show. I watched Tough Crowd.
Oh, that was the most underrated show, in my opinion. So that was before podcasts were big. That was like a podcast, right? Because you just had on great comedians, and they would just rip into each other. Patrice O'Neill and Greg Giraldo and
Yoshi always tells me he thinks Patrice probably could have been the biggest of all.
I think he could have.
he's really close friends with Patrice's manager, Jonathan Brandenstein. And, they were really disappointed, of course. I think Yoshi was one of the last few people to work with him.
Yeah.
In fact, at the club. So he always, when I ask him Yoshi's open for Jim Norton, Dave Attell, Russell Peters, Norm. Mm-hmm. When I told Yoshi that my young buddy had turned me on to Norm, he said, "Oh, it sounds like a great kid." He goes, "That's a perfect person." And I go, "Really?" I go, "Did you get to work with him?" He says, "Yes, a few times I got to hang out with him." He says, "Probably the highlight of my comedy career is getting to hang with that guy." And I go, "What was it about him?" He goes, "Well, it wasn't just that he was so damn funny and genius, but he had a good moral compass. Like with the OJ thing, he was making fun of that OJ got off, and they told him to stop." Mm-hmm. And he didn't stop, of course.
Yeah, he didn't care. He did what he wanted to do.
I like the interview with him where he's being interviewed, I don't know, maybe by Dennis Miller or Leno or somebody, and he's talking about getting fired from Saturday Night Live. He said, "Well, what was it like to get fired?" He goes, "Well, they came and they told me, Norm, we're making some changes. You're fired, and he goes, "Oh, geez, this is horrible news." And I go, "Well," and he's like, "Can you tell me why?" And he said, "Well, because you're not funny anymore." "Oh, Christ, that's even worse." It's a typical Norm.
Oh, you can always tell who the real comedians are because when you talk to someone and they're like, "Oh, I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy," and you're like, "Oh, really? Who's your favorite?" And then they say Kevin Hart. You're like, okay. Yeah. Like, not that he's not a good stand-up comedian, he's great. But like my grandmother knows who Kevin Hart is, But if you ask someone, "Hey, who's your favorite comedian?" and then they say Patrice O'Neill or Norm Macdonald or Dave Attell, you're like, "Oh, okay, you really are a fan of stand-up." Like, anybody can say Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor is like, okay, yes, everybody knows who they are.
Oh, Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, but again, not taken away from them because they are great. They are fantastic. But
we were talking about when Yoshi and I travel in the car a lot, and we've got a long drive. We just talk about movies or stuff, or pivotal roles, or scenes. We somehow Nick Nolte came up 48 Hours.
Yeah,
with Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy at the peak of his fame during that movie, and he was so good in it. And the pairing with him and Nick Nolte. It was a really good movie, and the reason we start talking about it is we're talking about Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Mike, the guy who plays Mike in both those shows, is so good, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, you remember he had a scene in the first of 48 Hours where Gans, the guy that had got out of prison, the bad guy, had shot Mike, and Mike came downstairs and he had been shot. And Nolte had a decision to make. He could either shoot the bad guys or save his friend, which was Mike. It's in the movie 48 Hours. Mm-hmm. You have to go back and watch it.
I should. I haven't seen it in a long time. I remember the scene where Eddie Murphy's in the country western bar. Yeah. That's the thing that stands out when I think about that movie.
Listen up.
Yeah.
New sheriff in town.
But Eddie Murphy, man, when he hit Beverly Hills Cop, like, oh yeah, that was, that first one, the second one's good too, but the first one was like, whoa, like that was the first time I saw him as like, oh wow, he's not just comedian, he's not, and it came out.
Trading Places.
Oh yeah, that's a great one with him and Dan Aykroyd.
But the chemistry between him and Nick Nolte in 48 Hours, when they do the fight, when they have the big fight, right? Yeah. They're fighting, then they get in the car. And he's getting ready, and Nick Nolte's getting ready to take off. He looks over at him, and he just hauls off and punches Eddie. His head cold cocks in one side. He says something like, "I was gonna kick your ass," Yeah. That's what Eddie said, and he just hauls off, and he says something. "Hey, Eddie, I'm sorry, but when I called you the N-word, I didn't mean it." It's like, it's so funny. And Nick Nolte was just such a good, gruff actor. I don't know if you ever saw the movie North Dallas 40. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a take on football, like a little bit of parody of the Dallas Cowboys. Mm-hmm. You know, where they got the religious coach. And
have you seen? There's a movie called Warrior.
Yeah.
Where he plays the dad. The two sons are MMA fighters or whatever, and he plays the dad, and he's an alcoholic or whatever. There's a scene where he like relapses. I mean, not to spoil it, but he gets drunk in the hotel room, and he's such a good actor. Like, he's so good. And I don't know.
He's a brilliant actor.
He's so good. He's so believable. Every time you watch a movie with him, you're like, I don't know. Sometimes you watch movies and you're just like, you're just playing a version of yourself.
I always wanted to work on a movie with him.
Yeah. He seems like a cool guy. Him and Jeff Bridges, they seem like guys that I would want to hang out with, you know?
Yeah, there's certain guys that I got to work with Kurt Russell on a movie called Stargate. I built a lot of the scenery for Stargate.
Oh, I've seen Stargate, yeah.
Really? Yeah, I built me and two other guys built this thing called the sarcophagus, where the guy goes in the thing and it goes and brings him back or whatever. So we worked on that thing for almost a year, building it. And it, had all kinds of stuff that moved, hydraulics and shit. And then I built a bunch of other stuff for that movie. But I got to watch a lot of the filming as well. And Kurt Russell was on that film. And Kurt Russell was just the most down-to-earth, coolest, played football catch with the crew, just a good guy, couldn't be nicer. That
was Kurt Russell with like the buzz cut, the like flat top buzz cut military cut.
Yeah, it was a weird role, and he was in there with James Spader and the guy who was playing the
French Stewart. He was in there.
Jay Davidson played the alien guy, and Jay Davidson had done a movie called The Crying Game, so he was hot after The Crying Game. So he did Stargate, but he had a real substance problem going on during Stargate. So he was doing heroin.
Yeah.
And they had to actually digitalize his eyes and stuff and do all kinds of stuff. He was a mess.
Oh,
in fact, lots of the scenes, they're just, he's there, but they've digitalized the voice and his look and everything. And I'm surprised he finished the movie because he was not in good shape. It's kind of an inside thing, and really.
I love the inside. I love inside.
I know. You know what I hate? People always ask me, "Why don't you talk more on stage about your Hollywood time and stuff, or hanging out with Brad Pitt?" And you know what? Because when you're working on a movie, one of the key things to keep working is to be professional. And not be gaga about people, or not be so fanboy out and stuff. I mean, of course you are.
Yeah.
But when you find out they're just cool people and stuff, and you brought up Beverly Hills Cop. I worked with a guy, Judge Reinhold, on that show from that movie. I worked on another show called Raising Cane's. We did 13 episodes. It never aired. It was... but he was the dad on the show, and he was he wasn't a real nice guy.
Oh.
I know, I haven't heard many bad things, but boy, he really lit into a couple of my friends on the set over stupid stuff,
Did you ever get to work with Steven Seagal? Because I've heard he is
No, I've heard
asshole.
He's a jerk, and I heard the stunts are like, people get hurt.
I heard there's a story I heard about him, because he's this... Hapkido master or whatever, and he used to like actually hit the stunt guys.
Yeah.
And there was one stunt guy who had a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And so Steven was like, I want you to come at me and try to take me down. They said he had Steven Seagal on the ground in a chokehold, and finally Steven had to tap, and he had shit himself during it.
Whoa.
Yeah, because he thought he was this big badass, and the guy just wrapped him up real quick.
Yeah.
And because there's always a bigger fish. There's always somebody who knows a little more than you do. And I guess everybody had been like, oh, he's the star. I can't. Right. But he pissed this guy off enough, and he was like, all right.
Those guys are amazing, too. I worked on Kill Bill, and all the guys that had filmed in Hong Kong came over to the United States, for pickup shots. So there's all those martial arts guys, and women, too. Mm-hmm. They're all over there, and they're such badasses, those people. And so what I was thinking about, though, a better story than that is one of the first movies I worked on the set was Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. And there was a kid playing Bruce Lee, and he was so good in it. Jason Lee is I think his name, Jason Scott Lee. Mm-hmm. And he did such a fantastic job. Lauren Holly played Bruce's wife. She was really good in it too. But there was a scene we had to do with Robert Wagner. He's an old actor. It's been in tons of stuff. I mean, he had a show called Heart to Heart years ago. He was in the movie Midway, which is the old Midway, you know, back in the day with Henry Fonda and all these people. But he's a young, really good-looking guy back then. Robert Wagner is known as a kind of a hunk leading man. I've actually worked with him on a couple other movies, and I've actually acted with him. It turned out as a full circle. But he was in this movie Dragon. Bruce Lee played a Hollywood producer, and I was getting to work with the shooting crew that night. And I remember one of the ladies that was working with us said, "Well, better get ready for a long night, Cole." And I'm like, "Really? Why?" She goes, "You never worked with RJ before?" That's what everybody called him, RJ. And I'm like, "No, I'm excited." And she goes, "Well, just it's going to be a long night." And sure enough, he was late. He was pretty tuned up. He didn't have many lines to say. I think his lines were he bursts into a room while Bruce Lee is editing something, and he says, "I got a picture for you, Bruce. It's a feature, a Hollywood feature with all the trimmings." Oh shit, we were there till like 4 a.m. for him to get those words right.
Oh man.
So that was kind of a famous story. Then years later, I was working on a film called Rocket's Red Glare, where I was again doing the scenery, but I got cast in the movie as well. And so I got to do a scene with him and Mary Lou Henner. She was a redheaded actress that was kind of hot for a while. And R.J. Wagner, it's my movie. I got my SAG card. My first lines, I said, "NASA no holds." That was my line. NASA no holds. That was where they were launching the rocket, you know.
Like in Houston in the control center?
Yeah. I was one of those guys, you know, the NASA no holds. I wanted to I remember I was like practicing. I was like, I really wanted to do it like Charles Heston, you know, like with that, you know, "Take your stinking hands off me."
Well, what was it? Jeff Goldblum got a whole career. Like he had one line in one like Woody Allen film, and he said it so like distinctly, or he said it so well with his own spin on it that it launched his career, and he went from having just
I'll
this.
have to look that up.
Yeah,
I love Woody Allen films.
I can't remember the name of the.
Have you ever seen the movie Take the Money and Run?
I don't think so.
It's the first movie Woody Allen ever directed. He was really young in it, and he plays a character called Virgil Starkwell, and he's a failed criminal. And I brought up the movie last night talking to one of the kids about something about, there's a scene where he's in prison and they're organizing a prison break. So he's part of the prison break, right? And they call off the break, but they don't tell Virgil. So now he's broken out of the prison, and it's Woody Allen. It's like, where is everybody? And then all of a sudden you hear Virgil's outside. I thought you told Virgil. For some reason, they're interviewing. For some reason, I told all the other guys, but I never told Virgil. And suddenly, that was Woody Allen. So now he's broken. He's outside the prison trying to knock on the door to get somebody to let him back in because the break's been called off. So somebody had a scenario in their comedy life over here in St. Louis, and I said, it sounds to me a little like you're on the outside now wanting to get back in because you made a mistake. You thought it was going to be better or something. It was an analogy. It's called Take the Money, Run. It's worth your time to watch.
I'll have to look it up. I'll have to look it up. That was awesome.
Woody Allen kind of went off the rails a little bit later on. So
yeah, and it sounds like some things are coming out now about he was like having sex with his adopted daughter or something.
Well, yeah, he married the one. He married the one daughter.
Yeah.
The Asian one.
That's so weird that how many creative people turn out to be.
Listen, it was the same way in Seventh Heaven. The guy who played Father, Stephen Collins, I got fired off Seventh Heaven after the first season because I got in an argument with the production designer. And actually, she was stealing from the company, and I threw her under the bus. I didn't didn't cover her.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was friends with Aaron Spelling's right-hand man. They graduated from college together, so that was it for me. And that's all right. I was working on another movie within a week, prepping to go to Hawaii and live in Hawaii for 6 months, so it was fine.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was in the producer's office. I'll never forget this, Seventh Heaven, and the producer's looking out the window at my son and Jessica Biel. They're like maybe 10 or 11 years old or something, 12 years old maybe. And he's like, God, if this show only lasts 6 more years. And I didn't really, like, huh? I didn't really understand what he was talking about. He goes, well, she'll be 18. And I'm like, oh, yeah, right. 6, she'll be 18. Hey, that's my son she's playing with, by the way, out there. You're talking about, you know. He'll be 18 as well. So I didn't think about it. And then, but there is that is prevalent. And then it turned out Stephen Collin had been molesting the kids that were coming on the show. I don't know how.
When that thing broke, when it, like, I think it was like 2015, 2016, when
you
all
remember the story?
I don't remember that particular story, but I just mean, like, it seemed like when the whole Me Too thing happened, and that people were like, can you believe it? Hollywood producers have been sleeping with actresses to give them parts or whatever, and everybody that I knew was like, yeah, that we all knew, like it's in The Godfather. There's a scene in The Godfather right before Robert Duvall goes to talk to the Hollywood producer. He's leaving. When he's leaving the house, they're dropping off like an 8-year-old starlet to go in to talk.
It's an 8-year-old?
She's young. She looks like Shirley Temple. Like, her mom is leading her out of the car, and they're fixing her hair, and like, now you be nice to him, you know, like that. And that's what they're implying. And that movie was supposed to take place in the 50s.
Yeah.
You know, so it's obviously been going on for a very long time. So when it broke and everybody's like, can you believe this is happening? Everybody that I knew was like, yeah. Right. We thought that's why we always, you know, people in the Midwest were always like, you stay away from Hollywood. That's, you know, they do bad things there.
It's weird because when you're on the inside in Hollywood, at least I can only speak for myself. When you're on the inside of Hollywood, you're so focused on doing your job good because, for one thing, it pays really well. But the reason why it pays really well is because there's so much pressure on you. You know what I mean? Like, I know I've been trying to put screw a door into a hinge and have a producer walk up behind me and telling me how much it's costing him per minute. Take your time, don't worry, it's only costing me, you know, $18,000 a minute while we sit here waiting for you to change out that door, you know, and I'm trying to get the screw to stay at the tip, but I can handle it.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the pressure you're under, so you're not really thinking about all the personalities and the personal shit that's going on. But I did know I got asked to do some personal stuff for, like, producers would say, hey, is there any way you could send a couple guys over to my place of your construction crew, and I got a closet, I want to build something, you know, and I'll pay for the material, I'll pay you guys and stuff. So you go to his house or whatever and see what he wants done. And when you're not doing a movie, or maybe you're doing the movie even, and you send a couple guys over to take care of his place, right? That's part of the deal. And you get to see how they live, obviously. Mm-hmm. And it's not always what you expect, right? But I never saw anything that made me run for the hills, you know? I heard about all that Seventh Heaven stuff, and I had no idea it was going on at the time. Because I was doing my job. I had a bunch of guys that I was in charge of, you know, so I didn't know about all that crap, you know?
Well, it's like, I mean, the people that I mean, around here, we didn't know specific names, like who was doing it and who wasn't. We just assumed everyone was doing it because you always heard rumors of...
That's the whole weird thing about the Giselle Maxwell thing.
Yeah.
She's guilty, but there's no victims, or there's no people.
There's no evidence about... Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
She's going away forever, but there's no clients.
Yeah.
What happened to all the clients?
What happened to the flight logs? What happened to the, you know, because That came out for about half a second that Bill Clinton had flown on that plane like 15 times or 27 times with Jeffrey, and then it very quickly disappeared. And
and what's his name? Bill Gates was on there quite a bit. And
there was
pretty creepy looking as well.
There was a ton of people on there, and I've heard rumors about Jimmy Kimmel being on there. I've heard rumors about like a whole bunch of,
and not necessary for the pedophile, but for something, obviously. Yeah. And maybe definitely for the...
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's just it. You can't... Everybody's going to be like, well, that's not why I was there. He just invited me for a weekend barbecue, whatever.
Right.
So everybody's going to claim that that's not why they were there. But if you were involved...
Let's face it.
Yeah. Perception is reality sometimes.
No, I know there's monsters in Hollywood. I mean, obviously there's monsters everywhere.
And I'm sure there's really good people too. I'm sure there's it's probably an equal number of good people to bad people.
One of the things is when you work for building scenery, I don't mean to take over your podcast.
No, keep going.
I was going to say, when you're building scenery, and I'm sure it's with any aspect with lighting or grip or stagehand or whatever, camera work, the best of the best come to Hollywood. So you end up working with some of the most elite, talented people from around the world. Like when we did Stargate, we had model makers that were coming from all over Europe and making miniature stuff. And they were so talented. And I'd watch the things that they're creating, and I'm like, well, Jesus Christ. I'm working with some of the most brilliant people, in the world at their craft. And it's that way, I think, for everything, too. It's for the acting, the directing, everything. That's one of the beauties of Hollywood, is that, or New York, that all the best do go there. That's why it's so competitive,
Yeah.
And comedy is the same way. People, say, well, how come you're not a regular Comedy Store? Well, when I started out doing comedy, the people that were hanging out at the Comedy Store were a bunch of dicks, frankly, and they were kind of jaded, and they really didn't go out and do the other mics or clubs or bar shows. And then when they did, they'd bomb. And when I go down there, it just wasn't a fun scene. And then they changed the booker at Comedy Store, and my buddy Earl Skakel, who's a regular there, paid regular, he called me up and he said, hey, you should, or text me, he said, you should start coming down to the store again. It's a new scene, it's better. And that's when Rogan and Kill Tony and all those guys started going down and hanging out. So I did start, I'd do all my mics, and I'd end up at the store, and I'd watch whoever, and then I know I've gotten up at quite a few shows in the Belly Room, and I've done the Original Room Potluck a few times, and I watched Russell perform from backstage at the main room. And it is a special place.
Yeah.
There's something about the Comedy Store that's unlike any other comedy club. There's the pictures on the wall, the history, the names. It's obviously a cool place.
It's always been one of my dreams to do a set there. The Comedy Cellar in New York. Right. There's the famous clubs that about that everybody I just want to do one set there. If I never get to be a paid regular, if I never get to write my name on the wall, that's fine. I just want to do it, to say I do it, say I did it.
All my friends that go out to LA from St. Louis, if they tell me they're going out there and they're comedians and they're cool, and I think they're easily referable. I always tell them, follow my friend here on Facebook or Instagram. He's a regular, and message him, or just say you're a friend of Cole's out here and you're coming out to LA, and you want to just come visit the store. And that way you've got a little connection there, that when you go up there, the security guy says who you are. You say, I'm here to meet, say Mrs. Skakel, for instance, I'm here to meet Big Earl. And you'll just waltz right in, he'll just point you, well, he's right over there on the patio, and next thing you're over there and you're meeting him, talking to him, and he'll, you're talking a little bit, and then you're meeting a couple of people. You might not go up that night, you might not go up that week, but you're meeting people to the doo-doo shows there.
It's the hang. It goes right back to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they're talking about the shows at the Laugh Factory, the Improv, and all the around town as well. So it's part of not just going there to perform, it's going there and getting to participate in the hang. Because the hang at the Comedy Store is pretty special when Dave Chappelle comes down and sits down at the end of the night for 30, 40 minutes and then hangs out in the parking lot with the comedians for another hour and a half before a car comes and picks him up, talking comedy.
Yeah.
How special is that for the community? Because he's really cool about it. The next day, everybody's profile picture on Facebook will be selfies with
Dave.
You can always tell.
Of course.
Chris Rock came to the store one time. He was the same way. He was really cool, really friendly, and talked to all the comedians. Just a good guy. And you know what? I have to say, most of the headliners, this is probably your experience too. When you meet somebody that's a headliner, and they're deservedly a headliner, they're almost 90% cool, down to earth, humble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Good guys,
that's what I would say, 90%, because there is that 10 that you meet and you're like, all right, man.
They're just a handful, right, for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Right?
Or they just, I don't know. I worked with a guy one time, and it was in Cape. It's a small town. So I went up to him and I was like, hey, man, thanks for coming to the club. It means a lot. I know that there's other places out there that you'd probably rather be, and 9 times out of 10, when I would do that, people would be like, oh, yeah, no problem, man. It was fun. This is a good room. This is, they just, even if it's not true, they still kind of are nice. And there was a couple guys that were like, man, I'm ready to go. Can you, are you driving me to the hotel? And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm too good for this type of attitude. And you're like, oh, okay.
You don't want to name him.
No. I mean, there was one guy who had a really famous brother who was a very famous...
Oh, Farley.
I mean...
That's all right.
Yeah.
You know what? He does the room that I do up in Reno, Tahoe, too.
Yeah.
And so... And that's what he's going to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Unfortunately, his brother was just fucking so brilliant.
Well, one thing that I noticed when I was talking to him after the show is that during the show, the line between him and Chris kind of blurs a little bit.
Oh.
And he kind of turns that version up. And then when he's off stage,
he's back to him.
He's back to him. And it's like, Are you kind of riding on your brother? I mean, would I do it? Maybe.
Yeah. Family.
If I had a
thing, right?
Yeah, if I had a famous sibling, would I?
You know what? There's another brothers. Brian Regan has a brother, Dennis Regan. And Dennis is funny.
Yeah.
But he's not Brian Regan funny. His brother's, Brian Regan's just fucking crazy funny.
Yeah, and he sells out.
Oh yeah,
he does stadiums and things like.
Yeah, if you asked me, Cole, what comedians you would watch, he'd be right there at the top because he's just so funny. He's clean. I'm not so obsessed with being clean. You know what I mean? I don't like when I say the F-bomb unnecessarily. When I'll think I had a good set. And I'll look back or listen to my audio at night because I tape every set and listen to it either in the truck as soon as or the car when I get out of there or at home, and I'll hear myself saying F this or F that too much, and it's not necessary that I'm saying it, but I like to be able to do it without doing it because say I did a room at Garage. I opened for a guy named at Helium for Brian Bates.
Oh yeah,
Brian's great guy, and he wanted to make sure I was clean. So I just I go, yeah, I'm not squeaky clean, but I'll just make sure I don't drop any F-bombs, and I should be fine. And he was cool.
Yeah, he's very nice. I haven't worked with him, but I met him after a show one time. Cool. And he's on the podcast with Nate Bargatze and Aaron Weber. And
what's the long haired guy's name?
Dusty Slay. Yeah. They've got a great podcast.
And Greg's going to be a part of it too.
Yeah. He did a couple episodes and he was great on it.
Oh, he was, eye level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course you want to be eye level.
Yeah.
You don't think you're just going to go in. It's so funny because now I go to shop for peanut butter, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you look.
Well, let's see what is on eye level. He's right. God damn, they got GIFs down.
Yeah, something happened. He pissed off the manager.
Yeah. And it's so funny, because we always go back to Greg, and I don't mind that we go back to Greg. We're lucky to have him.
Yeah.
And I said that the first of the podcast. That was one of the first thing I noticed about people say, what is it about out there you like? I go, well, it's supportive. The comedians support each other a little better. And then also you have access to a couple of really funny guys. There's another guy who when I first moved out here, I loved too, Spencer. He was so funny.
Yeah. Tegmeyer?
Yeah. Oh, my God. When I tell my friends, well, who's funnier? And I'd tell them, people I saw the night before. And they say, well, tell me one of his jokes. It's Spencer's. Spencer would always be.
Spencer always made me laugh. Always. I loved his jokes. There's such a good...
I found out he was moving.
Oh, one of my favorite jokes... I'll say it to you, but then I'm going to edit it out because I don't want to give his material away. But he said he always would open up with, have you ever rubbed one out and then just rubbed it right back in? It just makes me laugh so hard. I don't know why, but all of his jokes and the joke about
the trash.
Oh,
do you want to have sex? All right, I'll take out the trash.
He's so funny.
That was so funny, and I would tell my friends that, and I go, no, I don't do this justice because his timing and the way he says it, but they'd always laugh.
Yeah.
So people always do that. When you have friends that enjoy that you're doing comedy, they'll say, what funny stuff did you hear last night? And then when you start telling them, well, there's a certain person that always has something, then they start asking, well, what did that person have last night? And so I remember this in LA too. I have a few friends in LA that are, Yoshi was one of them. Yoshi would say stuff that was just like, oh, Jesus Christ. I'd have to tell because he's a little bit over the top. He's too dirty for some people. And he's a little bit, pushes it a little bit. But he's super funny, and he gets huge laughs. And I mean, I watched him when I was in Arizona. It's like I lose track. He has like 20 or 30 applause breaks, and he's not even 10 minutes into his set. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is a whole different level of funny. And I've talked to Russell about it too, and some other headliners. Like, not a lot of people can follow Yoshi. He's just too much. So, and he's too much to open some of Russell's shows too. He's just too dirty.
There's a lot of comedians out there that don't get the fame that they deserve, and they're just so fun. I mean, just so funny. Like, you know who Jessica Kierson is? Yeah. She is. I got to see. Very funny. When I was probably like 12. It was right after 9/11 happened. We went to New York City because my parents were big into church, and it was supposed to do something to help. I don't know how we were helping. I think it was just a vacation. But my aunt took myself, my sister, and her boyfriend to a comedy club. And I was only 12, but I was tall, so they were just like, whatever, come on. Like, they didn't even think about it, me being underage. Right. And it was just like a showcase. And we got to see Jessica Kierson. We got to see Dave Attell. We got to see, I want to say it was Earthquake, maybe. But, it was just a lineup of killers. And I remember, like, when Jessica Kierson was on stage and when David Attell was on stage, the backs of my head hurt. The muscles behind your ears, you know how when you laugh, they tighten up? I thought my head was going to pop. Like, it was so tight. I was laughing so hard. I couldn't breathe. I was coughing. And I just remember it was so effortless for them. They were just up on stage, just, David Attell's like, da, 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 da. He's just got that, like, just flat kind of delivery or whatever, and or maybe not flat, but like monotone voice, and he was just throwing them out so fast, like just set up, punchline, set up, punchline, set up, punchline, set up, just boom, 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 boom. And you couldn't even like recover because you were laughing from the last joke and he'd be 2 jokes ahead. Same with Jessica Kirsten. She would do crowd work and talk with people. And it's just like, I remember that was the first time I was ever like, oh, I wish I could do that. I want to do that for a living. That was a huge moment, but I'm not sure why I started talking about that, but I loved it.
It's just fun to watch funny people. That's what we were talking about Yoshi and how I have to like remind myself, okay, listen, I'm never going to be like, he makes people fall out of their seats. Just fall out of their chairs and stuff. I'll never be quite that funny, but you know what? If I can just work and be around that level, that's good. I got to do a showcase years ago in Boston at the Comedy Connection in Boston, and Louis C.K. went up, I think, right after me. I went between Lamont Price, he's a Boston comedian, and Louis C.K. And before Louis C.K. went to New York. So he was kind of up and coming then, but he hadn't done his show, Louis, yet. He hadn't done it, nothing of the shit had happened yet. It was back in in the 2005 or 2006 or something like that. And I was just happened to be back there, and I got a spot on that thing, and I remember watching him and thinking, oh my God, he's so good and he's so funny. He was just talking about his wife and his kids, but he was just so funny then. I'm glad he's back.
Yeah, that's how funny he is that he went through what he went through,
right,
and came back,
right,
and people were like, okay.
You know what? Comedians have done much worse. I mean, there's been some guys that have attacked waitresses and stuff, and luckily they're not top guys, and I'm not even sure if they're working that much anymore. But I'm glad he came back. I mean, he had a little issue, but they went there with him, voluntarily. They didn't know it was going to turn out like that, obviously. But they went there with their own. He didn't drag them there. They went there to party with him, right? Yeah. So, and then he just went back up against the door and said, well, this is how we party. I guess. I don't really know.
Well, I don't want to stop, but we've done 2.5 hours. That's long, and I have got to pee so bad. So thank you so much. The last thing I always wanted to ask people is, what is the best way to fix this? Do you have any suggestions for improvements?
No, but you can do all this stuff in editing, like lead in music and stuff like that. Right? You do that with editing?
And I do a separate intro. I'll because we didn't really have an official start.
No,
we just started
talking.
Yeah, which is what I like to do because it just leads to conversation. And then afterwards.
I'm sorry I'm so long-winded.
No, I liked it. I love learning all those stories. I'd love to have you back because I feel like there's a million things.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay out here in St. Louis.
Good.
For a while.
Good.
I love
hope
it
so.
here, dude.
It's really nice. It's not bad.
No, my friends are they're envious of me. They're like, you know what? You made a good move. It's dying back here. We're, nobody's hanging. Nobody's talking about. And it's so funny is I go away for 2 weeks, right? And I get messages like, when are you coming back?
Yeah.
They just we don't know what to do without you. Everybody just looking at each other. He goes, everybody looks at each other and then just drives off.
Yeah.
He goes, without you, there's no hang.
Yeah.
Or he goes, or it ain't as fun.
It's true. There have been several open mics since you've left, and I'll be like, hey, what do you guys want to do? Let's go hang out. Let's go hang out. And they're like,
do you know how good that makes me feel? It's just a person, not as a comedian, but just as a person. Because I'm a softie, right? A big softie. I'm a pretty pushover. To get that love from a community is fucking awesome, and I couldn't wait to get back.
Yeah.
And I told my friend, all I did when I was. Yoshi's heard about everybody.
Good.
I go, you're going to get dragged around. We're going to do my show at the Prism on Thursday, and then I think Wednesday, and then Steve's Hot Dog's going to do a showcase for you on Thursday night. So you're going to go do it. He goes, a hot dog place? And I go, yeah, that's the place I told you told him they had the shitty hot dogs. And you guys all enjoying your shitty hot dogs? And then he asked me to host the next show.
That's awesome. They have a good sense of humor about things there. You can talk shit and they don't really care, but
I felt so bad. It's like everybody's like, you gotta double down when you go back. So I went back and I ordered like a hamburger the next time. So I go up on stage and I go, well, I've had the hamburger. And everybody's like, and I go, what's it gonna be? And they're like, cold. They're all chanting. We're outside. And I'm like, all right.
Like Caesar, like proving a gladiator.
Like gladiator.
Yeah.
So stupid, right?
Yeah. That's great.
I think it's fun that we're having so much fun. And I would like to see the St. Louis scene rise up to where people come from St. Louis to LA and New York and they're like, man, these guys from St. Louis are fucking killing it.
Well, that's the thing is that a lot of people are like, oh, I want to move. I want to go to LA. I want to go to New York. And it's like, yeah, those will always be big spots, but there's no reason why St. Louis can't.
That's why I tell Andre,
can't be
stay here and develop.
Be a factory. I mean, be just a comedy factory, you know, right. Just pump people out. Boom, boom,
He has
boom,
a good
boom,
argument with me, though. He said to me, he says, well, which is better? Should I stay here and develop or would I be better off to be developing in New York? And I go, well, your stage time's going to be a little bit more limited at New York for now. So I would think get yourself a little bit more going polished here in this town. Get to where you're working on the weekends as a host or feature, whatever, at the clubs, and then go to New York or LA.
Yeah. Why? I mean, would you rather go to New York as no one who's not very good, not very polished, or would you rather get here, get polished, have a following, go to New York, get even more polished?
Well, I told him he should talk to Reggie. Reggie's in New York. Ask Reggie what he thinks.
Well, that's what Reggie did. Reggie got good here and then went to New York and now is getting better. But he didn't show up as like a bottom of the totem pole, you know. He's worked his way up to
and that's one
he's
of the
got solid
with
talent.
New York and LA is that both those cities, people come there and start out doing comedy there instead of starting wherever they were and developing a little bit, then coming there. So the mics are just clogged up with people that are reading off notes and everything. So it was a good time.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Cole. Thank you so much. I hope we do it again.
All right.